Chapter 144. For the first time in her life, Byran had the feeling that she had someone backing her up. Unconsciously, the corners of her lips curled up as she secretly laughed. Wuxia Xianxia saw that she was laughing and could not help but reach out to pinch her cheeks gently. "What are you laughing at? I feel like you're my big backer. Now that you've said that, I feel more confident." Actually, Byran was not a career-oriented woman. However, she was a person with a strong backbone. Especially after living under someone else's roof for so many years, she believed that no matter what, she had the ability to back herself up. However, after graduation, under her aunt's urging, she found a company and hurriedly started work. She did not consider her career direction and prospects. After joining the company, she designed a bunch of wedding dresses. She was almost numb to it. Originally, designing wedding dresses should have been a blissful thing. However, she often had to work overtime due to large orders. At her peak, she had to submit more than 10 design drafts a week. Although she did not earn much, as long as it was a design, she had to put in a lot of effort. Therefore, almost every design draft was a masterpiece. This was also the reason why the company did not let her go. If it were not for Byran's soft temper, with her talent, after working for a year in this small design company, she would have been the head of the design department. She was too easy to talk to, so she was suppressed. Why else would there be a saying, kind people get bullied? Seeing her satisfied look, Wuxia Xianxia's heart ached and he pitied her. "I'm your backer." After a pause, he added, "I'm your backer for life." "Yeah." Byran leaned her head gently on his shoulder. At this moment, on WeChat, the owner of the design department angrily complained again. "Byran, do you still want this job? Just because I gave you some color, you started a dye shop. Do you think work is so perfunctory? You don't even care about the company's rules and regulations. Do you believe that I'll fire you? If this goes on, this shabby temple won't be able to accommodate a great Buddha like you." Byran looked at the director's angry words and smiled. He replied lightly, "Since you've said so, isn't it up to you to decide whether to expel me or not?" In an office far away in Beijing. When the director saw Byran's reply, he almost exploded in anger. She had only said those words in a fit of anger. She really couldn't bear to fire him. One had to know that Byran was the head of the design department. It was because of Byran's talent that the company could receive more and more orders. She had threatened to expel Bai Hao just to intimidate him. She had thought that Bai Hao would be scared and beg for mercy after she had shown him her power. After all, in her eyes, Bai Kun had always been a soft persimmon that could be crushed at will. Now, this sentence made her completely dumbfounded. Does this idiot think his wings have hardened? The director had no way out of this embarrassing situation. He didn't know what to do. If he really fired them, what would happen to all the orders piled up there? He was known to want to die for nothing. This is so infuriating. So infuriating. The director slammed the table, his face red. Chapter 145. In the office, an assistant happened to be boiling water. Seeing the angry look on the director's face, she heard the director's nagging and grumbling on Bayu's WeChat. She probably understood what had happened, so she said casually, "This Bayu is really lucky." The director's attention was attracted by her and he was a little confused. "What do you mean?" "Oh, director, you don't know? I heard that Bayu married a good husband. I heard that he's worth tens of millions." "What's so strange about having a net worth of tens of millions?" The director said disapprovingly, "In this capital, how many people with a net worth of tens of millions can be smashed with a brick?" "Sigh, director, you don't know this. Do you know about the Spring River Imperial Seal?" "I know. It's a very famous real estate. Those who can buy it are the top people in society." The director reacted. "Why did you suddenly mention the Spring River Imperial Seal?" "I saw that her husband just bought a house there some time ago. Moreover, he has a good relationship with the president of Xingyu Financial Group." The director sucked in a breath of cold air. Most of the designers in this design company were Beijing drifters. Therefore, they worked hard in the hope of leaving a place in the capital. Owning a house in the capital and being able to buy a house were two different concepts. Many people's houses in the capital were obtained through demolition. The old city district was renovated and settled down in a residential area. Therefore, although most of the houses in the residential area were expensive, they could not be sold because they needed them. Secondly, the residential area was just an ordinary real estate. However, the Spring River Imperial Seal was different. This real estate was open to the top elites in society. Just the price alone was enough to make people flinch. Those who could buy the Spring River Imperial Seal were either rich or noble. When he heard that Bai Yu's husband lived in the Spring River Imperial Seal, the director did not believe it. Listen to her bragging. The houses there cost tens of millions and you still have to draw numbers. It doesn't matter, you still have to line up obediently. This isn't Bai Yu bragging. Everyone in our company knows and saw it with their own eyes. Bai Yu said that her husband has special channels and can buy a house there at a 50% discount. Many colleagues in the company didn't believe it, so they all went with her. In the end, they were slapped in the face in public. Moreover, many people said that Bai Yu's husband and the president of Xingyu Financial Group, Yun Tianyu. The director called out the name immediately. Yun Tianyu was an influential figure in the capital. It resounded like thunder in the ears. Yes. It was him. The two of them seemed to have a good relationship. Many people guessed that Bai Ran's husband is also a member of the rich second-generation circle. When the director heard this, he could not help but scoff. It's not that I want to say this, but this is just a dream. There has to be a limit, right? Rich second generation. Which of the rich second generation heirs in the capital didn't care about matching up? What kind of family background does Bai Hao have? She has nothing. She only has a pretty face. Why would someone like her? She felt a little unbalanced. After all, even she hadn't found a partner yet. With a monthly income of 20 to 30,000, she was considered to be at the bottom of the food chain in Beijing. The assistant smiled but didn't say anything. Maybe she's married into a rich family, so she doesn't care about this job at all. From what I see, she definitely has nothing to do with it. How blissful it is to be a young mistress who doesn't have to worry about food and clothing. There wasn't much malice in his words, but they were filled with envy. When the director heard this, he was skeptical. You're not telling the truth, are you? Chapter 146. Reading on a mobile phone. Reading on a mobile phone. Everyone in the company knows that I'm not the only one who can decide whether this is true or not. After the assistant finished speaking, she smiled and left. The director leaned back in his chair and suddenly felt a little puzzled. This society was not as romantic as television dramas. What rich young master and Cinderella? This kind of plot could not be played out in reality. There was a reason why families of equal social status should be matched. The disparity between the rich and the poor was not small at all. Not to mention ordinary people like Bai Ran, even the female celebrities in the entertainment industry could not wait to squeeze their heads into the gaps of the rich and powerful. However, the real rich and powerful looked down on them. Although the aristocratic system had been abolished in the country, just by looking at the banquets, the charity events, and the famous private clubs, it was clear that the abolition of the aristocratic system was just a superficial thing. In fact, many rich people liked to have the title of aristocrats. Everyone wanted to be a dragon or phoenix among men. The vanity and arrogance of humans had always been deeply ingrained. This was a little puzzling. Why could a commoner like Bai Ran marry into a rich and powerful family? That was the dream of many women. Moreover, Bai Ran was usually very dull and did not know how to please people. In the office, no one was willing to play with her. It was not that she was difficult to get along with. First, it was because she was strict with her discipline. She had to go home after work and rarely attended colleagues' gatherings. Second, she was poor. Because she was poor, sometimes when her colleagues were kind to her, occasionally treating her to a meal or small gifts, she did not dare to accept them. Her ability was limited and she did not know how to repay them. It was also because of this that Bai Ran was a little high and mighty in the eyes of others. Such a girl, what kind of tricks did she use? However, where did this phrase come from? Circle. Since she had really married a rich man, the circle of rich people must not be small, right? If they could get closer to her, then wouldn't they have the opportunity to come into contact with the circle of rich people? Perhaps, she would be lucky enough to find a Mr. Right that she would be in love with. The director of the design department was already 27 years old. He had been in this company for more than 4 years. He was cautious and conscientious, and his dream was to be able to live and work in Beijing. Her hometown was not rich and was a well-known poor village. After coming to the city, she was deeply attracted by the prosperity and neon lights here. She thought that she must stay in such a city. However, she had been busy with work for the past few years. She didn't like the male colleagues in the company because they were from ordinary families. She didn't know many big shots and occasionally had the opportunity to go on blind dates. However, based on her qualifications, it seemed that she couldn't find a satisfactory one. However, since Bai Ran was able to marry a rich man, she boasted that her background was better than Bai Ran's. Therefore, she was more confident. Bai Ran had just finished her afternoon tea when the director sent her another WeChat message. However, the tone in this message seemed to be much better. Sigh. Bai Kun. Previously, it was my fault. You were not in good health. As your superior, I should have been more understanding. At the same time, you should be more understanding. I'm also very tired with so many employees. You haven't come to work for a few days, and the partners have been rushing you. I kept asking you when you would come to work, but you didn't reply. Today, I saw you showing off the food on your WeChat moments. I thought you were having fun and didn't look like you were sick. I got angry. Start Zoe new chapter section please go to hall guest, mobile address. Start Zoe new chapter section please go to hall guest, mobile address. Chapter 147. The director was especially good at manipulating people's thoughts. She knew that if Bai Xing really married into a wealthy family like the rumors in the company said, then using the company's treatment to threaten her might not work at all. However, she knew that Bai Xing was a girl with a strong sense of responsibility. Therefore, she would definitely feel guilty if she were to talk about her responsibilities at work. As expected. When Bai Xing heard this, she really felt a little guilty. Indeed, when she heard the director's tactful tone, she also blamed herself. After all, she had not gone to the company for the past few days because of personal reasons, not because of her health. Except for that one time, she really could not get out of bed. In the end, because of the leave application, they had become unhappy. Bai Xing said guiltily, actually, some things have happened recently. I have also seriously considered the problem of work. I keep feeling that this job is not very suitable for me. I want to seek a development that is more suitable for me. At that time, it was indeed because I was not feeling well, but when I applied for leave, the company's handling made me feel a little disappointed. So, I understand, I also understand. You've been wronged, so are you a little disappointed with the company's leave application system? Bai Xing said bluntly, yes. If it's because of this reason, I want to apologize to you solemnly. At that time, there was indeed a misunderstanding. When the employee was not feeling well, as the company's manager, I did not comfort her immediately. Instead, I questioned and was aggressive. It was indeed the company's fault. The director's sincere apology stunned Bai Xing. If she had known earlier, this director had always been extremely harsh to her. Suddenly, he became so gentle and considerate. It was hard for her to get used to it. Bai Xing held her phone in a daze. Gu Qingze drank his tea casually at the side while observing her expression. However, he remained silent. On the other end, the director asked again, in short, if that's the case, you don't have to consider resigning anymore, right? When Bai Xing heard this, she immediately explained, I don't want to resign because of this. Then? Before Bai Xing could speak, the director asked, do you think the company can't give you a better development? Have you forgotten? You signed a contract with the company. If you leave, you have to pay the penalty fee. Penalty fee? Bai Xing frowned. He did not remember this rule. However, she didn't see it clearly when she signed the contract. At that time, the people in the HR department were busy with work and kept urging her to sign the contract. She thought that it was a legitimate company, but she had indeed neglected the matter of liquidated damages. Gu Qingze heard her and said in a low voice, "I'll pay for the breach of contract." When Bai Xing heard this, he said guiltily to the director, "I'll pay the penalty. The penalty for breaking the contract is very high." The director began to scare her. Bai Xing said, "I still need to focus on my own future development. I don't think the company's environment is suitable for me. Actually, seeking better development is also a matter of urgency. As the saying goes, a fine bird chooses a tree to nest in. However, in today's society, there is no lack of talent. Who doesn't require many years of work experience to find a job outside? You can work here for a few years and become a senior designer. Then, you can set up your own company." Chapter 148. Reading on mobile phone. Reading on mobile phone. Bai Ran was stunned when he heard that. She did not expect that the department head, who usually had the temper of an old hag, would be so gentle and persuasive to her today. Was it really the same person? Bai Yayan was not very good at rejecting people. Perhaps, since she was young, there were too few people who treated her well. Therefore, it was fine to say that they were a little mean to her, but she really didn't know how to reject them if they were gentle to her. However, she really wanted to leave, but she did not know how to respond to the department head's gentle tone. "How about this?" the department head probed. "I heard from a few of your colleagues that you got married not long ago." "Yeah, then you've probably been on a honeymoon during this period of time?" I guess so." Bai Yayan glanced at Gu Qingze, who looked at her and smiled. She smiled back and said, "We got married on a vacation." No wonder, the department head's tone was even more apologetic. She said guiltily, "I'm sorry, Bai Yayan. I seem to have wronged you. No matter what, you should have fun during this period of time. When you return to the country and come to the company, we'll talk about the details." "Okay." After hanging up the phone, Bai Yayan looked at Gu Qingze blankly. Gu Qingze asked half-jokingly, "What's wrong? Are you softening your heart? Don't tell me you're planning to continue working at the company? I heard that the breach of contract costs a lot of money." Gu Qingze smirked. "Didn't I say that I'll pay for you?" "But," Bai Yayan pouted and muttered, "I didn't do anything wrong. Why should I pay them the breach of contract? There's a price for the breach of contract, but you can't restrict your life because of this visible price. This is not an equivalent exchange." After hearing Gu Qingze's words, Bai Yayan suddenly felt enlightened. That's right. She couldn't possibly put her life and future on the line for the sake of a mere breach of contract. Moreover, if you don't want to pay the breach of contract, hire a lawyer and carefully read the contract. If the breach of contract involves the overbearing clause, the company's unreasonable request can be rejected. How much is the lawyer's fee? Bai Zhe began to calculate carefully in his little head. Gu Qingze didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "The legal team is ready-made. My company has them, so you don't have to pay extra." "Wow," Bai Hao nodded. "Okay, let's do that. Little money grubber." Gu Qingze couldn't help but scratch her nose lightly. How could this little fool be so cute and save money for him? "Since we're already married, you can just squander the money I earn. You don't have to be so frugal. Money will run out eventually. But you can't earn all the money you want. You can only earn if you spend money, right?" Gu Qingze's brainwashing was deeply rooted in people's hearts. When they were in college, Bai Ruo had the nickname of a cheapskate. Being stingy meant being stingy. It was not that she was stingy, but her living expenses were too little. Usually, she did not even have enough to eat and wear. Therefore, she could not take care of the social interactions between friends. She felt a deep sense of guilt every time she spent money. Even though Gu Qingze was so generous, she still couldn't suppress the guilt in her heart. Viewing Starter Zoe New Chapter 8 sections, please go to lobby, mobile address. Watch Starter Zoe New Chapter sections, please go to lobby, mobile address. Chapter 149. She felt deeply guilty every time she spent money. Even though Gu Qingze was so generous, she still could not suppress the guilt in her heart. Alright, since we're traveling, don't think about unhappy things. Gu Qingze coaxed her. Bai Ran felt a little guilty. Is it because of my work troubles that affect your mood? No. Gu Qingze tucked her messy hair behind her ear and said seriously, as long as you're happy. After all, this trip was prepared for her and them. Bai Yu smiled. Okay. At night, Gu Qingze brought Bai Yu to Causeway Bay. Bai Yu heard of Causeway Bay for the first time in the form of a KTV. Before coming to Hong Kong, she did not know that Causeway Bay was the most famous landmark in Hong Kong. There were many KTV chains in the capital, and one of the more famous ones was Causeway Bay KTV. What kind of place is Causeway Bay? On the way there, Bai Yu was a little curious when she learned that Gu Qingze was bringing her to Causeway Bay. Just like Wangfujing Street in the capital? Gu Qingze said, anyway, it's a pity to come to Hong Kong without shopping or going to department stores. If it's a department store, there's one in the capital too. That's different. Causeway Bay was located in the center of Hong Kong Island, west of the north coast. It was the main business and entertainment center in Hong Kong. There were many large department stores and shopping malls in the area, including Sogo Department Store, Times Square, Lee Stage Plaza, and the World Trade Center. The Causeway Bay shopping area was also the most expensive area in the world. The Gu family had a commercial building in Causeway Bay. According to rough estimates, the annual rent alone could reach more than 100 billion, which was very impressive. Bai Yu could not help but imagine what kind of place Causeway Bay was. She originally thought that department stores and shopping malls were nothing more than the same concept. However, when they arrived at their destination, they were greeted by colorful neon lights, bustling crowds, and stacked signboards. There were no blind spots. Causeway Bay was not big, but it was especially prosperous. Bai Yu glanced around and felt dazzled. It was too prosperous. Moreover, although there were many people, it gave off a sense of order. Gu Qingze held her hand as they entered the shopping mall. This department store was known as the Treasury. As long as one stepped into this place, there would always be countless ways to overdraft and squander money. This mall is Times. In the crowded square, the lights were especially dazzling and bright, giving people a feeling of glittering jewels. Bai Lian felt that his eyes were stinging. Gu Qingze brought her to the Gucci counter first. The moment they entered the counter, Bai Yu was immediately attracted by the bags displayed in the display window. Gucci had counters in many cities, but there were some designs that could only be found in Beijing that could not be found in the counters in Hong Kong. Similarly, if it was available in Hong Kong, it would also be out of print in Beijing. Bai Ran was immediately captivated by Gucci's two limited edition products. She wasn't a bag fanatic in the past, but after Gu Qingze brought her to the counter a few times, it was as if the door to a whole new world had opened for her. The few bags he bought for her were exquisite and beautiful. She couldn't bear to put them down and couldn't even bear to carry them for fear that they would break. She carefully treasured them. Gu Qingze said half jokingly and half seriously, if you can't bear to carry those bags, it can only mean that you don't have enough bags. Starter Zoe New Chapter 8 section, please go to Hangkou, mobile address. Watch Starter Zoe New section please go to client, mobile address. Chapter 150. At first, Bai Yanyan did not understand what he meant by not having enough bags. Next, Gu Qingze used his actions to explain to her what it meant to be a shopaholic. Bai Yanyan boasted that she was a woman who could shop. Although she did not shop much in the past, she often accompanied others to shop. In the past, when she shopped, she only shopped and did not buy anything. It was easy. However, the real tiring part of shopping was that she would enter any store she saw, try on any clothes she liked, pack them up after trying them on, pay for them after packing, and then move to the next stop. From the first floor to the second floor, Wuxia carried her like a little chick. He stopped at almost every store and pulled her in whenever he saw something nice. Bai Yanyan thought that he owned Times Square too. Swiping his card was like playing around. Before she could look at the price tag, Wuxia had already paid the bill and packed them up. Two. There wasn't even a buffer. Ah. After just one floor, Bai Yanyan started to doubt her life. She was so tired that she panted and asked to rest for a while. However, Wuxia did not give her the chance. It was rare to find a place to rest in such a huge shopping mall, so he simply continued shopping. Bags, jewelry, branded clothes, cosmetics, lipstick. Wuxia, who had been single for so many years, had accumulated a lot of money for a wife. In addition to this trip, he had plenty of money. Therefore, he seemed to have been liberated and went crazy. Wuxia must be an oddity, the complete opposite of other men. The other male subordinates in the company, whether it was accompanying their girlfriends or their wives to go shopping, would always have a bitter expression on their faces when they mentioned it. However, for some reason, Wuxia felt very envious. He felt that whether it was a bag or a nice dress, not to mention a lipstick that could be bought for a few hundred yuan, he felt that just these valuable possessions could make his girlfriend and wife happy. This kind of happiness was really precious. Bai Yanyan was originally exhausted, but when she reached the MAC counter, she could not walk anymore. She liked lipstick, and MAC was the only lipstick she could afford in the past. Compared to other branded lipsticks that cost hundreds to thousands, MAC lipsticks only cost a little more than 100 yuan each. They were easy to use and had good color rendering. She once had one, and she had been using it until now. Even though she had seen the end of it, she was reluctant to throw it away. Seeing that she liked lipstick, Wuxia bought an entire box before she even had the chance to try out the color. There were 128 lipsticks in a luxurious box set. There were so many popular brands, and they had everything. Bai Ran had just unscrewed the cap of a lipstick. He hadn't even tried the color on the back of his hand, and he had already placed an order. Bai Ran tugged at Wuxia's sleeve in shock. What did you buy? Lipstick. 128. Bai Kun wanted to cry but had no tears. I only have one mouth. I can't even finish it. Moreover, lipstick has a shelf life, and the shelf life is very short. It's okay. If I can't finish it, I'll just keep it as a collection. Wuxia said, such beautiful lips. Logically speaking, even if you put on makeup and lipstick every day, you'll be able to keep it on for at least half a year. But there are so many color codes. Do you only use 3 color codes a year? Oh my god. Wuxia, a straight man, actually knew about color signals. Chapter 151. Brother Qingza? A familiar and surprised voice came from not far away. Wuxia turned around and saw that it was Mu Yueyao. He did not expect to see her in Hong Kong. Wuxia was not mentally prepared at all. Mu Yueyao looked around cautiously until she was sure that there was no one else around Wuxia. Then, she walked over carefully. Wuxia glanced at her guilty expression and understood that she must have done something wrong. What? Wuxia looked at her. Why are you so cautious? Are you alone? No. Wuxia looked at her from the corner of his eye. Mu Yueyao saw that Bai Ran was choosing blush and eyeshadow. She was surprised. This is your sister-in-law. Are you married? Mu Yueyao was even more shocked. Yeah, I haven't had the time to inform her yet. When is the wedding? Wuxia raised his eyebrows. At least until Nana wakes up. At the mention of Natalia, Mu Yueyao's eyelids twitched and she smiled. Oh right, we've already agreed on it. No matter whose wedding it is, we can't miss it. Yeah. Then, Mu Yueyao looked at him and then at Bai Ran. She asked curiously, why are you in Hong Kong? We're planning to travel and get married first. As for the ceremony, we'll officially send you an invitation when Nana wakes up. Okay. Then I'll wait for Brother Qing's wedding invitation. After a pause, Mu Yueao sighed. I wonder when Nana will wake up. Tell me honestly. Gu Qingze suddenly said something out of the blue. Huh? Mu Yueao pointed at herself. Me? Aha. It's not the holidays now. Why are you in Hong Kong? Don't you have class? Mu Yueao's face turned red. She was extremely embarrassed. Did you skip class again? Gu Qingze inched closer. Tell me, why did you skip class? Jingyang has a fan meeting in Hong Kong tomorrow. I wanted to come early to pick him up and... Gu Qingze's face darkened at the mention of Jingyang. You guys haven't reconciled yet? Mu Yueao's face fell at his words. She let out a long sigh, turned around, and rubbed her forehead with a headache. I don't know. He seems to be avoiding me, but, even if he doesn't forgive me, I don't care. Even if she could only hide in a corner and secretly watch him, that would be good. Gu Qingze sighed internally. Yueao was the little princess of the Mu family. She had been doted on since she was young. No one was willing to let her suffer the slightest grievance. Why did it have to be Jingyang? It was simply a calamity in her life. It had been 5 years since that incident. Jingyang still could not forgive Yueao. However, everyone felt that it was not Yueao's fault. However, Jingyang stubbornly believed that it was her fault. Yueao also felt that she had let Jingyang down. Hence, in front of Jingyang, she hid her princess-like arrogance and was careful. She even had a sense of inferiority that did not match her status. She wanted to make it up to Jingyang as much as possible. She had also said that she wanted to atone for that incident. However, Yueao, don't torture yourself because of that incident. Chapter 152. It's been so long. Are you still unwilling to let go of yourself? Gu Qingze's heart ached for her. She was not responsible for what happened back then. However, after so many years, Yueao still refused to let go of her. I also want to let go of myself. Mu Yueao looked up. Her usual innocent smile was gone as she said calmly, if you want to let go of yourself, you have to let go of him. She suddenly clenched her fists and bit her lip hard. Gu Qingze's heart ached as he raised his hand and pulled her into his embrace. Bai Ran had just finished choosing her eyeshadow. When she turned around, she saw Gu Qingze hugging a girl. She was surprised and many question marks popped up in her mind. What was going on? Why was he hugging a girl in an unfamiliar city? Bai Ran did not think too much about it at first. Instead, she had a strange idea. There were many new street games nowadays. For example, blindfolded hugging and kissing any stranger. For example, the recently popular TikTok app. Many boys and girls took their phones to the streets to tease passers-by. Bai Ran suddenly realized what was going on. Oh. The person being hugged was her husband. Bai Ran was also somewhat territorial. She immediately walked over with a smile, but she aggressively walked behind Mu Yueao. She lowered her voice and suddenly said, "What are you doing?" Mu Yueao was shocked by this voice and immediately separated from Gu Qingze. Gu Qingze looked at Bai Ran and raised his eyebrows slightly. However, he did not explain immediately. Instead, he smiled gently and said nothing. On the other hand, Mu Yueao was flustered. She knew that Bai Ran was Gu Qingze's newlywed wife. With the mentality of avoiding suspicion, she immediately distanced herself from Gu Qingze. "Hello, sister-in-law." She stood upright. Her outstanding performance in the military training in university made Bai Ran think that she had a military background. "You, Aya, what a coincidence. It's fate to meet big brother Qingze and sister-in-law here." Ha 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 ha. She laughed awkwardly, which made Bai Hao puzzled. This girl, why did she feel so guilty? Mu Yueao was stared at by Bai Ran and felt even more guilty. She quickly tried to smooth things over. Big brother Qingze is so mean. When did he get married? He didn't announce it to the public. Bai Hao got straight to the point. Why were you hugging each other? Mu Yueyao explained, because Brother Qingze and I haven't seen each other in a long time. I didn't expect to meet you in Hong Kong. Bai Ran looked at Gu Qingze suspiciously. Gu Qingze smiled and explained, I haven't had the chance to introduce you. This is Yueyao Mu. Ugh, do you still remember my friend at the Spring River Heavenly Seal? Yes. Remember, his name is Yun Tianyu. Yueyao is his biological sister. His biological sister. No wonder when Bai Ran saw Yueyao, he immediately felt that there was something familiar about her. Just like Yun Tianyu, whom she met at the Imperial Seal, and also the movie queen, Yun Shishir. So she was his biological sister. Bai Ran's face turned slightly red. After all, she had misunderstood Yueyao just now. Yueyao. She smiled and extended her hand to Yueyao in a friendly manner. Hello, I'm Bai Ran. Yueyao hurriedly extended her hand. Hello, sister-in-law Bai Ran. Don't call me sister-in-law, it sounds awkward. No, sister-in-law is sister-in-law. Chapter 153. Alright. Gu Qingze was amused by Yueyao's flattering look. Which hotel are you staying at? Hilton. When are you going back? Just as Gu Qingze finished speaking, Bai Xing added, why don't we have dinner together later? Mu Yueyao quickly shook her head. It's okay, no. Let's go together. I have to pick her up at the airport later. Pick her up at the airport? Bai Ran looked at Gu Qingze in confusion. What? What does this mean? Gu Qingze said, she has something to do later. I'll treat you and Jingyang to dinner tomorrow. Okay. Mu Yueyao quickly retreated. Bai Ran looked at her back view strangely and asked curiously, what's going on? She seems very shy. Gu Qingze was a little embarrassed. Well, it's because I didn't have time to tell her about my marriage. It was indeed rushed. Also, wasn't our previous marriage considered a secret? I didn't tell my friends and colleagues either. So, it's normal that your friends don't know. You don't have to look so guilty. Gu Qingze's lips curled into a smile. Suddenly, he looked at her mysteriously, but there was a hint of playfulness in his gaze. Your reaction just now seemed particularly strange. Strange? What's strange? Being stared at by him, Bai Yu felt inexplicably guilty. Gu Qingze's gaze deepened. He lowered his head and asked in a voice that only she could hear, you saw me hugging another girl just now. From your gaze, it seemed like you were jealous? Bai Ran was so shocked that she almost bit her tongue. She stuttered, I wasn't jealous just now. I was just a little surprised. Is it difficult to admit that you're jealous? Gu Qingze pinched her nose lovingly and dotingly. Tell me, you're jealous. Bai Hao held his breath and puffed his cheeks. This feeling of being seen through was so embarrassing. She had always wanted to be a magnanimous wife. However, when she saw her husband hugging a strange girl, her first reaction wasn't to find out who the girl was, but to feel jealous. He felt that the scene was very eye-piercing. Bai Hao was like a kid who had made a mistake. He lowered his head. If I'm jealous, will you feel unhappy? Gu Qingze raised his eyebrows. How can that be? I'm happy that you're jealous. Why? Because I would think that you must care a lot about me, that's why you're jealous. As Gu Qingze spoke, he gently kissed her cheek. Sometimes, I wish you could be more petty. When Bai Yu heard this, his face turned even redder. She pursed her lips. When she heard this, she finally admitted, I was a little jealous just now. I felt sour, ha ha ha. Gu Qingze suddenly laughed softly. His voice was especially pleasant to the ears. It was as clear as spring water, without any impurities. Hearing this voice, Bai Ran's face burned even more. She could vaguely hear him ask, have you chosen your eyeshadow? Here's the ticket. Bai Ran lowered her head and passed the ticket to him. Gu Qingze said to her, "Wait for me here. I'll go pay the bill." "Okay." Bai Ran kept her head down as she secretly watched Gu Qingze's back view as he went to pay the bill. The more she watched, the happier she felt. Watch first appearance Zoe new chapter section please go client, mobile address. Watch first appearance Zoe new chapter section please go client, mobile address. Chapter 154. After shopping in Times Square, Bai Ran had done a lot of planning before coming to Hong Kong. Therefore, she suggested that they go to the online celebrity restaurant to check in. In the age of the internet, the concept of online celebrity restaurants and online celebrity dessert shops were everywhere. However, Gu Qingze did not have a good impression of online celebrity restaurants. The so-called online celebrity restaurants were actually cheap, affordable, and more delicious. In the past, when he was on a business trip to another city, he would occasionally want to go to the online celebrity restaurants on a whim. However, in fact, many online celebrity restaurants often had a bad service attitude. Perhaps it was because business was too good and they had to serve many customers every day, so the waiters' tempers were not necessarily too good. In fact, there were countless places that were better than the online celebrity restaurants. It was just that because of the price, they did not have much exposure. Gu Qingze was not very willing to go to the online celebrity restaurants because, as expected, the attitude of the staff should be quite bad. Some people did not care about the service attitude. However, Gu Qingze was a very particular man. He was not willing to spend money to get angry. "Don't go to the online celebrity restaurants." Gu Qingze suddenly said, "I don't think there's anything good about the online celebrity restaurants." "Huh? Actually, there are many restaurants that are better than the online celebrity restaurants. I used to come to Hong Kong for business trips often, so I know a few good restaurants. Do you want to try them?" When Bai Ran heard this, she was almost drooling. Okay. Gu Qingze saw her excited expression and could not help but laugh. "Why do your eyes seem to light up when it comes to delicious food?" "Because I'm so hungry. I'm a little hungry." As Bai Ran spoke, she tilted her head. "I think that in this world, only love and delicious food can't be let down." "Okay, you won't let me down. You won't let me down. It's a good thing that you like to eat." "How is it a good thing?" "Because if we quarrel in the future, as long as I take you to eat delicious food, you definitely won't be angry." Gu Qingze said it so matter-of-factly. Bai Ran said, "Won't you feed me until I'm white and fat like this?" Gu Qingze said with a serious expression, "Isn't it good to be white and fat? You're so thin now. When I hold you in my arms, I feel that there's not much meat on your body other than bones." "Humph." Bai Kun pretended to be angry and said, "When I eat until I'm white and fat, won't you dislike me?" "Why would I dislike it?" Gu Qingze raised his eyebrows and said, "I like you. Even if you're as fat as a pig, I don't care." "Really?" "But I can't accept that I'm too fat and out of shape," Bai Hao said with a look of disbelief. If that was the case, she wouldn't be able to wear any pretty clothes. She was obsessed with beauty, so she was especially strict with her body. Gu Qingze pinched her cheek and said, "To be honest, I don't like you when you're too skinny. If she had more meat on her body, she would be even cuter. If you're too skinny, I won't feel comfortable holding you in my arms at night. It's not good to be too fat. Yes, it's a little meaty. A little plumper is enough." When Bai Kun heard this, he was still a little skeptical. "Let's go. If we're any later, we'll have to line up again." Gu Qingze naturally held her hand. Viewing Starter Zoe New Chapter 8 Sections Welcome to Hall of Visitors, mobile address. Watch Starter Zoe New Chapter 8 Sections Welcome to Hall of Visitors, mobile address. Chapter 155. Gu Qingze knew that there was an authentic Cantonese restaurant in Hong Kong that tasted pretty good. Hong Kong was inclusive of all things. The food culture of various countries bloomed here. However, when he came to Hong Kong, he naturally had to taste authentic Cantonese food. Gu Qingze often went abroad, but after traveling to so many countries, he still felt that China's food culture was the most delicious. Gu Qingze had a preference for Cantonese food. In Hong Kong, there were many authentic Cantonese dishes, but for the picky Gu Qingze, the restaurants were also divided into different grades. As he was a regular customer, he would come to this restaurant every time he came to Hong Kong. Purple Air from the East was the name of this Cantonese restaurant. It was very recognizable and was easy to remember. When the manager saw Gu Qingze, he welcomed him warmly. "Are you here on a business trip again?" "No." Gu Qingze pushed Bai Xing in front of the manager and introduced her solemnly. "This is my wife. This is our wedding trip. Hong Kong is the starting point. We plan to travel around the world to commemorate our wedding." When the manager heard that it was a wedding trip, he was a little surprised. "A wedding trip?" "Yes." Although there were many people who wanted to go on a wedding trip and it was trending, not many people actually took action. When he heard that it was a wedding trip, the manager was so excited that his face was flushed red. "Mr. Gu, you came at the right time. We have a honeymoon room here. It seems that fate has decided to prepare it for you." Gu Qingze nodded and held Bai Xing's hand as he followed the manager to the room. Along the way, Bai Xing was really getting more and more nervous. The restaurant's furnishings were especially luxurious. Although many glittering elements were used, they were not tacky. Instead, they showed a noble style. Bai Xing was a little worried. She asked nervously in a low voice, "Will the expenses here be very high?" It had almost become an instinct for her to care about the amount of expenses. Because her life had always been tight, no matter what expenses she had, she would prioritize whether the amount of expenses would exceed her expectations. Gu Qingze said seriously, "From now on, you're not allowed to think about spending anymore." "I'm worried." The worry on Bai Xing's face was so serious that Gu Qingze didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "What are you worried about?" "I'm afraid that I'll spend too much money. What if I don't have enough money to go home halfway?" Gu Qingze tried hard to hold back his laughter and said, "Then I'll sell you, okay?" In a moment of desperation, Bai Xing blurted out, "But I don't think I can sell for much money." "Ha ha ha ha." Gu Qingze burst out laughing. He had always been a reserved person. Smiling like this was already a bit of a loss of self-control. "Idiot, how are you worthless? You're a priceless treasure that only people can't afford. Besides, I won't really sell you." "Well, don't mention the money anymore. Since we're going to travel around the world, I've brought enough money with me." He even brought a few black cards with him. The limit of the black card was unlimited. There was nothing to worry about. Only then did Bai Xing relax. After the two of them entered the private room, Bai Xing's concept of luxury was refreshed. The private room was especially big. The moment they entered the room, they were attracted by the crystal chandelier that occupied the entire ceiling. The chandelier was made up of countless crystal tubes. When the wind blew, they would collide with each other, creating a pleasant tinkling sound. Viewing Starter Zoe New Chapter 8 Sections Welcome to Hall of Visitors, Mobile Address. Watch Starter Zoe New Chapter 8 Sections Welcome to Hall of Visitors, Mobile Address. Chapter 156. It was too beautiful. The entire ceiling of the huge private room was occupied by this chandelier. Wasn't this chandelier too big? And it must have cost a fortune, right? She had seen a chandelier that was 1/10 the size of the chandelier. Just the chandelier alone cost tens of thousands. Just the chandelier in the private room must have cost several times the cost. Once they entered the private room, Bai Ran stared at the chandelier. Gu Qingze gently tugged at her sleeve. "What are you looking at?" "I'm looking at how many crystal tubes there are." Beside them, the waiter smiled knowingly and immediately explained, "Sir, our chandelier is made up of a total of 4,600 crystal tubes. More than 4,000 tubes. It was so grand." Bai Ran was so shocked that her mouth opened wide and she gasped. Before she could finish gasping, her peripheral vision was attracted by the luxurious floor-to-ceiling balcony. The private room was made up of a suite. Inside it, there was a pantry, a reception room, a bathroom, and a dining room. In addition, there was also a 40 square meter balcony. The balcony was surrounded by roses. Dark green vines wrapped around the railings of the balcony. There was an inexplicable beauty to it. This time, the inhalation was exceptionally long. It's too beautiful. It was her first time eating in such a beautiful environment. She felt inexplicably touched. The heart of a young girl that had long withered in her heart seemed to have been revived. Gu Xianxia saw that Bai Ran couldn't hide the surprise and love on her face and felt satisfied. Although this restaurant's per capita spending was high, the environment was really good. Other than the environment, the taste was also very good. The flavor was unique. It was much more meaningful than squeezing into the crowded shops that were popular on the internet. Bai Ran sat down and waited to order. However, after the waiter settled them down, he lit the candles and left quietly. Bai Ran was speechless. What's going on? Gu Xianxia raised his eyebrows. What do you mean what's going on? Isn't anyone ordering? Ordering? Gu Xianxia smiled and explained gently, there are only 2 menus here. One is the family menu, and the other is the lover's menu. The dishes on the menu are fixed. You can't choose. Bai Ran felt that this way of eating was a little novel, but he still couldn't help but worry. However, if the set meal is fixed, then won't it be too much to eat? The amount here is based on everyone's average appetite. It won't be a lot. Moreover, it's very delicious. Even if you're full, you won't notice it easily. It had to be said that the owner of the restaurant had a unique way of doing business. Imagine a dish that was incomparably delicious, but there was only a fixed amount of it. No matter how delicious something was, it was inevitable that one would get sick of it after eating too much. With such a fixed amount of food, there would be nothing left after eating it. If one felt that it was delicious, they would feel that it was not enough. Next time, they would still be unable to resist coming here. Every time they ate, their experience would be just right, and they would not overdo it. Instead, it would leave them with an incomparable aftertaste. It was said that a couple came here for a meal on their first date. Since then, they were obsessed with the delicacies here and would come here a few times a month. The expenses here were very high. It was already good enough that he rarely came here. It was too extravagant to come a few times a month. In the end, the man was so miserable that he almost went bankrupt. He quickly broke up with his girlfriend, which made people not know whether to laugh or cry. Viewing Starter Zoe New Chapter 8 sections, please go to Tranquil, mobile address. Starter Zoe New Chapter sections, please go to Tranquil, mobile address. Chapter 157. After sitting down for about half an hour, the dishes began to be served in an orderly manner. Guangzhou cuisine included the Pearl River Delta, Shaoguan, Zhanjiang, and other places. The ingredients were rich, the selection was meticulous, and the skills were excellent. It was clear but not bland, fresh but not uncommon, tender but not raw, and oily but not greasy. Generally, in terms of cooking, it was good at stir-frying. It required the control of the fire and the oil temperature to be just right. At the same time, it was also compatible with many Western cooking methods. It paid attention to the momentum and grade of the dishes. Chaozhou cuisine originated from the Chaos Han area. It was the best of Min and Guangdong, forming its own style. Among them, it was good at cooking seafood. Soups, vegetables, and beets were the most unique. The knife skills were exquisite, and the taste was pure. Dongjiang cuisine originated from the Dongjiang area of Guangdong. The dishes were mostly meat, and there were very few seafood. The main ingredients were prominent, and it paid attention to fragrance, heavy oil, and the taste was salty. It was good at casseroles and had a unique local flavor. Originally, Bai Ran thought that she would definitely not be used to it. She was born in the capital, but she was born spicy. Originally, it was hard for her to imagine what sweet tofu pudding tasted like in the north and south. It was said that the taste of Cantonese cuisine was on the sweet side. Among the 6 cold dishes, the most famous in Cantonese cuisine, white-cut chicken and honey roast pork. Bai Ran ate a piece of barbecued pork and was surprised. She had already defined the taste of barbecued pork in her mind. No matter how delicious it was, it would only taste like that. She did not expect the authentic honey roast pork to taste so delicious. Bai Ran could not help but start to study. What seasoning was used to make this plate of barbecued pork? How could the same seasoning be delicious in some restaurants and ordinary in others? Although she did not often eat Cantonese cuisine, she had occasionally eaten Cantonese cuisine at gatherings. The taste was not so authentic and delicious. It was so delicious that she cried tears of happiness. Bai Ran held her chopsticks and was still intoxicated by the aftertaste of the barbecued pork. Gu Qingzi recommended another set of Hong Kong-style shrimp dumplings. Eat this. Okay. Bai Ran was really conquered by the delicious taste of Cantonese cuisine. Seeing that Gu Qingzi strongly recommended the shrimp dumplings, she immediately reached out her chopsticks and picked one up. He put a thin and tender prawn dumpling into his mouth. Before he could chew it carefully, the skin broke under the gentle bite of his teeth. The fresh and tender gravy and the delicious aroma of the prawns immediately rushed into his mouth. Ugh, Bai Hao's eyes brightened. He couldn't help but twist his body and shake his head. He looked so cute. Gu Qingzi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This is so fun. Why are you jumping up and down while eating? It was as if they were dancing. Delicious. Bai Hao couldn't help but pick up another one. As soon as he put it into his mouth, he started to nod like a little rabbit. Gu Qingzi had never seen a person who wanted nothing more than to dance while eating. Ever since he was young, he had received a strict upbringing. Gu Jinglian was especially strict when it came to family education. Although they were not as strict as before, they had more rules than ordinary families. When he was young, whenever he ate something delicious, his body would shake uncontrollably. However, as he gradually grew up, he followed the rules and basically did not show any emotions when he ate. Whether it was delicious or not, it was all the same. If Bai Ran behaved like this, Gu Jinglian would say that he had no manners. However, he felt that Bai Hao's unruly display of his true feelings was very cute. Chapter 158. At the airport. It was packed with people. Many fans were holding flowers in their hands, eagerly anticipating the appearance of their idol. They were all looking at the screen, waiting for the flight carrying their idol to land in front of them. Mu Yueyao stood at the closest spot, leaning against the railing. She was holding the flowers in her hands, feeling a little nervous. Suddenly, a scream came from the crowd. Jing Yang is here. The next second, a group of intimidating bodyguards appeared at the arrival gate. The men in black suits cleared the way. Even though there were so many bodyguards surrounding him, a tall figure stood out among them. Immediately after, the media, who were waiting at the scene, rushed forward like crazy. The cameras flashed and Jing Yang's black sunglasses came in handy. He was wearing a slim-fit coat and a mask. The flight from America to Hong Kong was very long. He looked a little tired as he walked forward with his head lowered. When Mu Yueyao saw Jing Yang, she immediately went up to him with the flowers in her arms. Brother Jing Yang. Before she could finish her sentence, the man in the center of the circle suddenly turned around. However, when his gaze landed on her, he immediately turned away coldly. Mu Yueyao was stunned. He had clearly seen her, but he ignored her. While she was in a daze, she was pushed to the ground by the crowd. In order to get closer to their idol, the fans used all their brute force to push forward. Mu Yueyao was pushed to the ground. When she got up in a daze, the crowd had already gone far away. The flowers in her arms fell to the ground in the midst of the shoving. Countless feet trampled over them. The petals fell and were crushed, almost turning into mush. Mu Yueyao looked at the bouquet of flowers and her tears fell. Her heart seemed to have turned into countless petals and was extremely broken. He saw her, but he didn't stop walking. Instead, he quickly left the airport under the protection of the bodyguards. In the blink of an eye, she was the only one left in the originally crowded arrival hall. When the cleaning auntie saw her, she immediately walked over and asked with concern, "Are you okay?" Mu Yueyao curled her lips and smiled. She wanted to smile, but her tears fell even more violently. How did it become like this? He used to be her strongest pillar of support. But now, they were like strangers. He walked past her, his eyes cold and indifferent. He didn't even look back. Yueyao silently picked up the flowers on the ground and hugged them tightly in her arms. She squatted on the ground and was stared at by the staff. She couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed and immediately buried her head in her arms. "Ai, this girl is so beautiful. Why is she crying so sadly?" They seem to be Jing Yang's fans. These children, instead of studying, they came here to chase after celebrities. I wonder if they treat their idols so well, but how do they treat their parents? Do you still need to ask? He must be an ingrate. The flowers were crushed, but he didn't even look at his idol. The group of people seemed to be regretful and mocking as they shook their heads and left in twos and threes. Mu Yueyao didn't seem to hear what they were saying. She hugged the flowers and walked towards the door alone. At the entrance, the fans still left every day, chattering about the itinerary for the next day. It seemed that Jing Yang had already left in his car. Viewing Starter Zoe New Chapter 8 Sections. Welcome to Hall of Visitors, Mobile Address. Chapter 159. Yueyao quietly walked along the main road of the airport with the flowers in her arms. This was a place not far from the drop-off area. The taxi arrived with the guests and left with the guests. On the huge overpass, she was the only one walking on the side of the road. Her back view looked lonely. During this time, countless cars brushed past her and almost hit her, but her expression did not change at all. However, the passers-by could not help but feel frightened when they saw her. They stopped their cars from time to time to remind her. "Young lady, it's so late. Why are you walking on the street alone? Where are you going? Get in the car. Take a ride?" Yueyao only shook her head. She did not hear what they were saying at all. Whether it was out of concern or other intentions, she just hoped that these noises would be as far away from her as possible. Until a nanny van stopped behind her. Honk, honk, honk. The car honked. The sudden movement gave her a big fright. Yueyao hugged the scattered flowers and turned around in surprise. However, she only saw a pair of particularly glaring lights. She saw the Mercedes-Benz logo and saw the completely dark car window. She frowned and looked at it suspiciously. Just as she was about to turn around. Behind her, there were a few more honking sounds. This time, she was completely annoyed. Mu Yueyao hugged the flowers and walked toward the door of the front passenger seat. However, the door of the back seat opened and a man in a black suit walked out. He looked like a bodyguard. "Miss Yueyao, please get in the car." "Get in the car?" Mu Yueyao was suspicious. "What are you doing?" "Please get in the car." The man repeated again, but his attitude was surprisingly good. Mu Yueyao could not help but look at the back seat. From her angle, she could vaguely see the silhouette of a man. She was a little surprised. From the silhouette of this figure, she immediately thought of Jing Yang. Could it be him? Mu Yueyao walked toward the car door again. However, the bodyguard raised his hand and gently pressed it against her back, pushing her into the car. After some hesitation, Yueyao sat in the back seat. However, she suddenly became reserved. Jing Yang did not speak. He just looked ahead. The bodyguard got into the front passenger seat and closed the door, cutting off all the noise outside the car. The soundproofing of the car was very good. She could even clearly hear the man's steady and quiet breathing beside her. She was at a loss for a moment. She lowered her head and looked at the flowers in her arms that had been crushed by someone's foot. She was even more embarrassed. In his opinion, she must be very stupid. He wanted to throw it away, but he couldn't just open the window and throw it away. Mu Yueyao hugged the flowers tightly in annoyance. She didn't know whether to throw them away or not. She just sat there like a fool. The man beside her didn't say anything, and he didn't even pay attention to her. His eyes were looking out the window, and she didn't know what he was looking at. After a long time, he suddenly spoke. Don't do this kind of thing again. Such a thing? Yueyao widened her eyes in surprise. What's the matter? Jingyang did not look at her. Instead, he snorted. What do you think? Mu Yueyao felt a little wronged. She had traveled thousands of miles to Hong Kong just to pick him up from the airport, but he brushed it off by saying, such a thing. No matter how warm her heart was, it was instantly splashed with a basin of cold water. I know. Mu Yueyao was a little peeved. I won't do it again. Jingyang asked again, where are you staying? I'll get the chauffeur to send you back. End of chapter. Chapter 160. Just as Mu Yueyao was about to answer, she suddenly realized that she had booked the same hotel as him. If she were to tell him that the hotel she had booked was the hotel that the organizer had arranged for him, wouldn't it seem too deliberate? Mu Yueyao gulped, feeling wronged. She pursed her lips but didn't say anything. Seeing that she was silent, Jingyang frowned and asked, where are you staying? He repeated his words again, his tone showing his impatience. Mu Yueyao immediately said, drop me off at the junction. I'll take a cab back. I said I'll get the chauffeur to send you. Why are you sending me? Mu Yueyao was trying to provoke him. She smiled helplessly and said, didn't you say so? You told me not to pester you anymore. You can just drop me off at the junction. Don't worry, no matter how capable I am, I won't pester you anymore. Jingyang silently scrutinized her for a long time. After a long silence, he said, I came back to pick you up on account of your daddy and mommy. Yueyao, don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Because of his words, Yueyao's grievances finally overflowed. She held back her tears, but she stubbornly forced them back. Gritting her teeth, she looked up and said, I don't want you to care about me. Don't care about me. And don't use my daddy and mommy to pressure me. Jingyang, don't go overboard. Jingyang looked at her silently but didn't say a word. Yueyao then realized that his gaze had become even colder. Because of her words, his expression suddenly collapsed. Yueyao bit her lip, knowing that her words had angered him. She didn't say another word. It was so strange. She had lost control once again. Clearly, she wanted to get close to him and win him back. However, the relationship between the two people was once again brought to the freezing point. In the Mu family, everyone dotes on you and spoils you. It's okay for you to be arrogant because of that. But with me, I don't have to indulge you. As Jingyang spoke, the car arrived at the junction. He instructed the chauffeur to stop the car, and the car stopped by the roadside. Jingyang looked out of the window and did not look at her again. Although he didn't say anything, the cold air reminded her that he was chasing her out of the car. Mu Yueyao didn't stay any longer. She hugged the flowers and got out of the car directly. As soon as she got out of the car, the bodyguard got out of the front passenger seat and closed the door. He then returned to the front passenger seat and the car sped away. Mu Yueyao did not turn back to look at the car. It was not until the sound of the engine had faded away that her tears stopped falling. How did it end up like this? Even if it was because of that incident, so many years should be enough, right? In front of him, she had always been humble, patient, pandering, and guilty. He saw it all, but remained unmoved. Was she so unforgivable? Even if she was young and ignorant and made a mistake, after so many years, even if he didn't forgive her, he wouldn't look at her with such hatred. If apologizing was useful, she was willing to apologize to him 1,000,000 times. If there was a way to pay for her mistakes, she was willing to do everything she could to repay the past. But, the past could no longer be reversed. Why couldn't he forgive her? Mu Yueyao stood by the roadside. At this moment, the street was no longer as busy as before. There were few pedestrians and only cars coming and going. She knew that he wouldn't instruct the chauffeur to turn around. He had really abandoned her. Chapter 161. Mu Yueyao returned to the hotel and walked into the elevator. She wanted to swipe her card, but when she searched all her pockets, she realized that her bag was gone. The card was in her bag, but she couldn't find her bag. Mu Yueyao was stunned. She furrowed her brows. Even when the elevator door slowly closed and started to rise, she was still in a daze. Where was her bag? She remembered that she was carrying it when she went to the airport, but when she came back, she couldn't remember when her bag had suddenly disappeared. When she came back, she walked all the way back and didn't seem to have met anyone. In the end, she hailed a taxi. Yes, when she paid for the taxi, her bag seemed to still be beside her. Mu Yueyao couldn't remember at that moment. Her bag was really gone. Other than the hotel card, her passport and all her other documents were in her bag. Ah. Mu Yueyao then realized the seriousness of the matter. Damn it. The money and bank cards didn't matter. Although she had a credit card, the credit card limit was relatively small. Besides, she could cancel it at the bank at any time. But those documents and all kinds of proof, and most importantly, if she lost her room card, where should she stay tonight? Unknowingly, the elevator doors opened again with a ding. When the doors opened, Mu Yueyao looked up. However, when she saw a group of people standing at the door, she was completely stunned again. She bumped into him again, Jingyang. He must have returned to the hotel early, but he didn't appear alone. Besides his manager and assistant, there was also a gorgeously dressed and extremely beautiful girl beside him. She was dressed sexily, and when she smiled, there was a hint of coquettishness. The reason why Mu Yueyao was stunned was because this girl was standing right next to Jingyang without any gap between them. They looked really intimate. Jingyang was originally talking to the girl beside him. When he turned his head and saw Mu Yueyao standing in the elevator, he was also stunned for a moment. He suddenly reached out and held the girl's hand. The girl was also stunned for a moment. Her face immediately turned red and she held Jingyang's hand back shyly and intimately. The two of them held hands tightly and walked into the elevator together. The hotel's VIP elevator wasn't very big to begin with. When the group of 5 walked into the elevator, Yueyao was immediately squeezed into a corner. She wasn't very tall, and from her angle, she could only see Jingyang and the girl holding hands tightly. She was separated from the two of them by 2 assistants, but she could vaguely feel that they had a close relationship. It was already so late, where were they going? Furthermore, Jingyang was staying in this hotel. The others were either agents or assistants. What about this girl? It was already so late, why would she appear together with him? Could it be? Was she the partner the organizer had arranged for Jingyang? It was said that for many celebrities, the organizers would considerately prepare a beautiful girl for the male celebrity to accompany them. During these few days of local activities, this girl would always be by his side, doing whatever he wanted. Many male idols couldn't fall in love during the contract period, let alone get married. However, physiological needs could not be ignored. Therefore, the organizers took these problems into consideration and usually arranged for a girl of such status. Usually, when the celebrity returned to the hotel, the girl would already be waiting in the room. At this time, were they preparing to go out for supper or to go to a nightclub to drink? Chapter 162. At the thought of this, Mu Yueyao's face turned green. Was this the girl that the organizers had assigned to him? Looking at this girl's appearance, she was of the highest quality. However, the air of a prostitute in her movements could not be concealed. In the past, he wouldn't even look at this kind of girl. Now, seeing him so close to this girl, so intimate, there was a tacit understanding between the two of them that people couldn't bear to look at. Mu Yueyao had to admit that she was jealous. Why did he suddenly become so depraved? Or was he doing it on purpose for her to see? But how did he know that she would appear in this hotel? Mu Yueyao's emotions were in a mess. Little did she know that while she was silently observing Jingyang, the girl beside Jingyang was also silently observing her. Seeing that Mu Yueyao was staring at Jingyang, the girl snorted and laughed. "You're Jingyang's fan, aren't you?" As soon as she said this, everyone looked in Mu Yueyao's direction. Except for Jingyang. His gaze never fell on her. He only looked silently in the direction of the elevator door. The girl tightened her grip on Jingyang's arm again and said mockingly, as a fan, can't you be a little more sensible? Jianghu has already made it clear that he doesn't like sightseeing fans, especially sightseeing fans who chase him to the hotel. Mu Yueyao looked at her silently. Not to be outdone, she retorted, and who are you? This rhetorical question stumped her. The girl looked at Jianghu and then looked at Mu Yueyao. She snorted coldly and said, what right do you have to ask? How can you be so sure that I'm a fan? Mu Yueyao suddenly said mockingly, why don't you suspect that I'm a paparazzi? When the girl heard this, her expression changed and she looked at Jianghu worriedly. Jianghu finally turned his head and glanced indifferently at Mu Yueyao. But he still didn't say anything and turned his head back. The girl furrowed her brows worriedly. She knew that Jianghu especially hated paparazzi. If this girl was really a paparazzi, then if the news of her spending the night with Jianghu got out, Jianghu would definitely be angry. But she was a little suspicious. It wasn't that she was biased against the paparazzi. Instead, as paparazzi, they often had to stay up all night just to wait for news. It was common for them to stay up all night. The girl in front of her was prettier than her. One had to know that the reason she was able to reach this step was because of her one-in-a-million looks. She had always been proud of her looks, but when she saw Mu Yueyao, she suddenly felt ashamed of her own inferiority. In other words, if she had such a beautiful face, why would she want to work as a paparazzi? The girl was surprised and suspicious, but Mu Yueyao turned her head to Jianghu and asked with the aura of a main wife, Jianghu, who is she? Jianghu retorted coldly, what does it have to do with you? Is she your date? Mu Yueyao went straight to the point. Jianghu stared at her silently for a moment. Then he suddenly smirked and said, she's my date. Date? Mu Yueyao's lips twitched violently. What date? You don't have to ask about that. Just as he finished speaking, the elevator happened to reach the first floor and opened with a ding. Chapter 163. Jianghu did not look at Mu Yueyao again. Holding the girl's hand, he slowly left the elevator with a few managers and assistants. Mu Yueyao lowered her head and did not look at his back. She stubbornly turned her face away and allowed the elevator door to slowly close. The elevator door closed again. Mu Yueyao did not have a hotel card, so she did not know which floor the elevator would stop at. When the elevator door opened again, a couple holding hands walked in. Seeing that there was someone else in the elevator, the couple, who were originally entangled with each other, was startled and restrained themselves a little. However, when they entered the elevator and saw Mu Yueyao with her head lowered, their actions became unrestrained again. Standing in the elevator, the two began to hug each other intimately. They were glued to each other like glue, hating that they had to separate. Through the reflection of the elevator door, Mu Yueyao saw the two stuck together. For some reason, the scene of Jianghu and that girl holding hands intimately flashed before her eyes. Her heart instantly sank. Woo woo woo, Mu Yueyao's heart felt as if it was being wrenched. She felt so silly. Since young, Mu Yaja and Yun Shishir had doted on her. In addition, her two elder brothers, Mu Yichen and Yun Tianyu, had doted on her all the way. No one had ever treated her like this. She admitted that she was partly responsible for that matter, but did she not even have the right to atone for her sins in his eyes? Was he taking revenge on her? Or did he purely like that girl? No matter which answer it was, Mu Yueyao could not bear to see it. Mu Yueyao's heart sank fiercely. She hugged her knees and squatted on the floor. All of a sudden, she did not even have the strength to cry. The couple at the side was shocked when they heard her suddenly cry. The girl in front of them suddenly lost control of her emotions, causing them to lose interest in being intimate with her. The girl among the couple walked to Mu Yueyao's side, bent down gently, and asked in Cantonese, "Miss, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" Mu Yueyao only cried and did not respond to her. The girl was kind and patiently asked, "Which floor are you staying on? Are you from Hong Kong? Or are you here for a vacation? Do you have any companions? What happened?" When Mu Yueyao heard the girl's impatient voice, she felt that the world was getting darker and darker. She wished she could bury her head in her arms, but at the same time, she wished she could drown herself in the universe. It would be best if no one could find her. She felt that she was really stupid. For the sake of her sweetheart, she had followed him all the way to Hong Kong, but she had never expected to be humiliated like this. His mood was so low that it couldn't get any lower. The girl stood up in a daze. She glanced at her boyfriend and sighed helplessly. Chu and I isn't even willing to tell. She screamed so miserably. What a sinister technique. Could it be because she was heartbroken? The boy shook his head and replied in Cantonese, "You don't need to control him. Just go to the lobby manager." When the elevator reached the first floor, the couple walked out. The girl wanted to help Mu Yueyao up, but seeing that she didn't even have the strength to stand up, she simply squatted beside her and accompanied her. The boy hurriedly went to find the lobby manager. Not long after, the boy rushed over with the lobby manager. When he saw Mu Yueyao, the lobby manager frowned slightly and suddenly asked tentatively, "Miss Yueyao?" Mu Yueyao still didn't move. She only buried her head, as if she couldn't hear anything. Chapter 164. Just as everyone was at a loss, Mu Yueyao suddenly buried her face in her arms and muttered painfully, "I thought everything would pass. What do you mean?" No one knew what she was muttering about. Mu Yueyao suddenly lost control and said, "If only I was the one who died back then." She covered her ears and closed her eyes. Suddenly, she felt as if she could see Jing Yang's soulless back outside the corridor of the hospital. People were coming and going. In the operating theater, doctors and nurses rushed in one after another, looking anxious. Jing Yang's face was pale as he stared at her angrily and suspiciously. Mu Yueyao looked at her hands again and suddenly realized that her hands were covered in blood stains. The person lying in the operating theater was his closest relative, his mother. Because of her, it was all because of her that the mother and son were separated forever. Jing Yang dashed over and grabbed her by the shoulders. His eyes were bloodshot. "Mu Yueyao, what do you want?" The nightmare repeated itself. Mu Yueyao was so shocked that she broke out in cold sweat. She choked and said, "I didn't want to. I'd rather the person lying in there was me, then why don't you die?" Jing Yang lost control and roared at her. Mu Yueyao was so frightened that she curled up into a ball. She leaned against the wall and slid down slowly. "If anything happens to my mother, I'll hate you forever." With that, Jing Yang turned around and left. At that time, she did not even have the courage to look at him. "I'd rather die. I was wrong, I know I was wrong." Mu Yueyao covered her ears as if she was hallucinating. In the midst of the heavy traffic, she was pushed hard and felt the world spinning. She propped herself up again and looked back. However, all she heard was the screams of countless passers-by. Ah! Oh my God! A big truck ran over a living person. It ran over her body. It's definitely useless. Oh my God, there's blood everywhere. It's so scary. Quick, call the police and the ambulance. Mu Yueyao got up from the ground in a daze and staggered to stabilize her center of gravity. However, she saw that the scene not far away was already surrounded by people. Many girls screamed in fear. Order was once in chaos. There were people around her constantly asking about her well-being, but she couldn't hear anything clearly. The traffic police came quickly. She had just passed through the crowd when the police came to pull up the cordon. The driver stood by the side, looking at the people on the ground and sighing. Yueyao finally pushed the crowd aside, but she saw a scene that she would never forget in her life. The woman was crushed by the huge wheels of the truck. Half of her body was exposed as she lay on her back, blood foaming at the corner of her mouth. "Help! Help!" Mu Yueyao finally reacted and screamed in panic, "Help! Help! Is the ambulance here?" She only had one thought at that time, and that was to lift the car and drag out the person under the wheels. Therefore, she rushed forward without a care for her own safety and hugged the huge tire of the truck with both hands. The traffic police on the side immediately pulled her back. Save them! Save them! Mu Yueyao screamed at the top of her lungs, save my mom. She's my mom. Save. Save my mom. Mother Jing's gentle words seemed to echo in her ears. You like Yang Yang. When you grow up, marry Yang Yang, okay? Okay. That's great. Then, from now on, you'll call me mom like Jing Yang? Chapter 165. She felt like she was drowning in a sea of darkness. When Mu Yueyao woke up, she realized that she was lying on a bed. When she came back to her senses and sat up on the bed, she suddenly realized that she was in a ward. A ward? Mu Yueyao held her forehead. She had completely lost her memory of what had happened before she came to the ward. She didn't know what had happened. She couldn't remember what had happened at all. You're awake? A stern and familiar voice came from the side. Mu Yueyao looked in the direction of the voice and saw Mu Yichen sitting by the bed. He was dressed in a well-ironed suit and his back was as straight as it could be. She didn't know why, but no matter what he was wearing, he gave off the impression that he was dressed in military attire. Mu Yueyao was stunned. Brother, yeah. Mu Yichen snorted coldly and didn't say a word. He frowned and adjusted his posture. He sneered expressionlessly, you came to Hong Kong without your family's permission and went through all sorts of trouble. Do you want to go to heaven? No. I didn't. Mu Yichen suddenly leaned over and held her chin. His tone was stiff as he said, look at you now. You're so haggard. How did you get yourself into this state? Mu Yueyao slapped his hand away gloomily. She turned around and looked at the television. Through the reflection on the screen, she indeed saw her extremely haggard face. She couldn't recover from the setback. Mu Yichen couldn't bear to yell at her when he saw her pitiful look. He raised his eyebrows and asked, what's the matter? Why do you look so aggrieved? Brother, Mu Yueyao's voice trembled like a little lamb and she looked even more pitiful. Why are you yelling at me? Mu Yichen touched the bridge of his nose. When did I yell at you? You were yelling at me. Mu Yueyao looked like she was about to cry. Look at your face. You look like you're going to eat me up. Eat me up? So exaggerated? Mu Yichen nervously turned around. Behind Yueyao's back, he secretly took out his phone to take a picture of himself and touched his face. Oh. He didn't seem to be very fierce. However, his expression seemed to be a little more serious. It seemed so. Mu Yichen cleared his throat and looked at Yueyao. She pursed her lips and looked like she wanted to cry, but no tears came out. All right. His tone became a little warmer. He deliberately made it soft, as if he was afraid of scaring her to tears. However, it was not hard to hear that he was angry. Did you come to Hong Kong to look for Jing Yang? Looks like they're arguing again. No. No. Mu Yichen did not believe it. However, the truth was that she and Jing Yang did not even speak much this time. Ever since that incident, Jing Yang's attitude towards her had become very cold. She knew very well that he hated her because of that incident. However, she thought that besides hatred, he should at least show some concern and care for her, right? This time, her heart was really hurt badly. In the Mu family, she had always been the high and mighty princess. She had never suffered such humiliation. These few days in Hong Kong, she could no longer maintain her composure in the face of his indifference. It didn't matter how he humiliated her. However, when she saw that woman appear beside him, all of her psychological defenses crumbled completely. Chapter 166. All right. Mu Yichen's heart ached, too. He had always doted on his younger sister, but now that she was being bullied outside, his heart ached terribly. Still, he was exasperated at her failure to live up to his expectations. Why did he keep an eye on that B****starred? His sister was the Mu family's beloved princess. There was a long line of men courting her, so why should she be bullied by that B****starred? Mu Yichen was furious. He could not wait to chop that B** starred into pieces. However, when he looked at Yueao's aggrieved face, which was about to crumple into a ball, he tenderly reached out and pulled her into his embrace. Oh, oh. Don't cry anymore. As if coaxing a baby in swaddling clothes, he gently patted Yueao's back and coaxed, "All right, don't cry anymore, okay?" Yueao was furious. On one hand, her face was flushed red, and on the other, she was speechless. "Brother, I'm not a child anymore. Besides, I'm not crying. In my eyes, you'll always be a child. You'll never grow up." As Mu Yichen spoke, he tucked her hair behind her ear. His voice was as mellow as red wine. It was mellow and mellow, yet it made one's heart feel inexplicably at ease. When she was young, no one dared to bully her because of her two brothers' protection. Due to her brother's love, she became very arrogant and willful. Mu Yazhe and Yun Shishir even despised Mu Yichen and Yun Tianyu for spoiling her too much. What did Mu Yichen say? He righteously retorted, "She's my sister, and I dote on her. Who dares to have an opinion?" At that time, Mu Yichen was young and frivolous. Even Mu Yazhe could not do anything about his son. Yun Tianyu's attitude toward Yueao was more subdued. However, whoever made Yueao cry, although Yun Tianyu's methods were not as harsh as Mu Yichen's, the consequences were always the worst. As a result, Yueao became more and more arrogant. Yueao also knew that her personality had been spoiled by her two brothers. She had also thought about changing it and had put it into action. She was much more mature than before. But even so, these two clown brothers still couldn't bear to see her suffer any grievances. Yueao blushed a little. She was actually a little shy, but when she heard Mu Yichen's comforting voice, for some reason, tears welled up in her eyes. She rubbed the corners of her eyes and felt like crying. "Brother, he really doesn't want me anymore," Mu Yichen snorted. "It's not that he doesn't want you, it's you who doesn't want him. He's not good enough for you, eh?" Upon hearing Mu Yichen's words, Yueao could no longer hold it in. Her tears finally soaked Mu Yichen's clothes. Mu Yichen's heart ached even more. He felt that the hot tears were about to flow into his heart. "No matter what, you'll always be the most precious in your brother's heart." "Brother," Mu Yueao dropped all her defenses and hugged him tightly. She did not want her tears to be exposed under the sun. She would rather bury these tears in her brother's chest. Mu Yichen did not say anything. He raised his hand and gently stroked her back as a form of consolation. His heart, however, felt as if it was torn apart. He hugged Yueao's head into the crook of his neck. When he looked up again, his gaze was as cold as a knife. This B** starred. Over and over again, he had made his sister sad and heartbroken. It was fine if it was just brushes before. This time, he would not tolerate it. Chapter 167. TV Station, Interview Room. When Jin Yang returned to the dressing room after finishing the program, it was already 1:00 in the morning. The program was a recorded broadcast. The Hong Kong TVB variety program always revolved around gossip. Jin Yang endured and ended the interview patiently. He was exhausted. As soon as he returned to the dressing room, he collapsed on the sofa and did not want to move anymore. Tired. Exhausted. At this moment, his mind was filled with Mu Yueao's disappointed face. According to the hotel manager, a girl fainted in the elevator yesterday. She was rushed to the hospital and there was no news of her since then. He suspected that it was Mu Yueao. Because her name could no longer be found in the hotel's guest information. She had already checked out of the hotel. What happened? She fainted? What happened? Countless questions filled his head and he had a splitting headache. Yesterday, he agreed to a dinner party and the investor asked this girl to accompany him. He did not expect to bump into her in the elevator. Jin Yang did not pay attention to her, but he did not expect that something would happen not long after he left. "Jin Yang, are you tired? Do you want to drink some coffee?" Beside him, his assistant kindly served him a freshly brewed coffee. When Jianghu smelled the bitter taste of the instant coffee, he could not help but want to vomit. He covered his mouth and waved his hand. The assistant immediately understood and left with the coffee. She knew that Jianghu's mood was not very good these 2 days. No. It should be said that since he stepped into the entertainment industry, he had never shown a real smile. There was once a program that asked him why he wanted to enter the entertainment industry. He was a top economics student at a 985 university. However, he did not choose to pursue a postgraduate study in economics. Instead, he chose to enter the entertainment industry. Although Jianghu's foreign trade conditions were good, there were better choices for him other than the entertainment industry. However, Jianghu said that he entered the entertainment industry to repay his debts. He and his mother owed a huge debt, as high as 100 million. He had to repay this debt. This statement shocked the entertainment industry and fans. It even topped the entertainment industry's trending searches. Jianghu had a debt of over 100 million. Some smart fans looked up Jianghu's information and did not find any debt background. There was no record of him being executed. A young man who did not gamble, did not have any bad habits, and came from a clean family background. Where did this debt of over 100 million come from? No one knew. After that, there were also people who asked Jianghu out of curiosity to verify the debt. However, Jianghu avoided answering them and only said that he would retire from the entertainment industry after he earned 100 million. Therefore, Jianghu's fans were in a dilemma. They wanted to spend money on him, but they were also worried that if they spent too much money, their idol would leave the industry after earning 100 million yuan. But, there were also some media outlets that said that this was all a publicity stunt. However, Mu Yueyao knew where the 100 million debt Jianghu was talking about came from. Jianghu collapsed on the sofa and let his body sink into it. Suddenly, there was a sound of footsteps outside the door. However, he remained unmoved. Until the door of the dressing room was forcefully pushed open with a bang. Everyone except Jianghu looked at the door and saw a tall man with a domineering aura standing at the door. His eyes were cold. Everyone was so scared that they didn't even dare to breathe. Logically speaking, if someone suddenly broke into the dressing room backstage, the assistant would definitely rush forward to chase them out. Chapter 168. Logically speaking, if someone were to barge into the dressing room backstage, the assistant would rush forward to chase them out. However, when Mu Yichen stood in front of them, no one dared to step forward due to his intimidating aura. Jianghu raised his head to look at Mu Yichen. He, too, saw the pain and fury in his eyes. He knew who he was here for. When they were young, he had always been the elder brother whom he respected the most. He and Yun Tianyu were also the ones who took care of him the most. Now, however, he could only see disappointment and anger in the man's eyes. Jianghu, I'm warning you, from now on, keep your distance from my sister. Don't go near her, do you hear me? Jianghu did not look surprised when he heard this. He only said blandly, you should be saying this to Yueyao, right? Who's the one pestering who? She's the one who keeps disturbing my work and affecting my life, yet you want me to keep my distance from her? I've already done enough to keep my distance. Mu Yichen was especially furious when he heard this. He tightened his grip on Jianghu. His fingers turned white from exerting so much force that he gritted his teeth. Is it so difficult for you to admit that you like Yueyao? Can't the two of you get along well? Why are you still angry? It's been so many years, shouldn't it be over by now? Jianghu raised his brows coldly but did not deny it. Instead, he smirked. So what if I love her? Mu Yichen was stunned. What was this? What do you mean by, so what if I love her? I hate her. Jianghu's expression was frosty. Mu Yichen did not know what to do with his icy expression. He had never seen Jianghu with such a cold expression before. Hate her? Do you know how much I hate her? Jianghu retorted, if it were you, what would you do? You've lost your loved one, can you still accept her? It's not her fault. That's because she's your sister. Jianghu's words left Mu Yichen speechless. She's your younger sister. She can be forgiven even if she has done something wrong. Mu Yichen could not help but ask, what about you? Don't you love her? That matter wasn't entirely her fault. You're just passing on the pain of losing a loved one to Yueyao. Don't mention that name to me again. Jing Yang's face was filled with disgust. He was extremely sensitive to this name. He frowned and turned his face away, not wanting to listen anymore. However, Mu Yichen did not take Jing Yang's rebellion seriously and insisted on bringing it up. Aren't you afraid of losing Yueyao? For the current me, there's nothing I'm afraid of losing. Jing Yang's voice remained calm. I just don't want to see her again. Before Mu Yichen could say anything, Yueyao's melancholic voice came from behind him. Brother, there's nothing more to say. He was stunned and turned around in shock. He saw Yueyao standing at the door, her body swaying slightly as if she could not stand straight. However, she was still trying her best to suppress some of her emotions and put on an extremely perfunctory smile. Jing Yang, you have to remember what you said. I'll pay back what I owe you, but you have to pay back what you owe me. Jing Yang was stunned as well. He did not expect Yueyao to be standing outside the door and hear the entire conversation between him and Mu Yichen. Chapter 169. Jing Yang, remember what you've said. I'll repay what I owe you, but you'll have to pay back what you owe me, too. Jing Yang was stunned, too. He did not expect that Mu Yichen and Yueyao would be standing outside the door and overhear their conversation. For a moment, he could not recover from his shock. Yueyao, who was standing before him, looked too haggard. All this while, she had always been a beautiful and noble princess in front of everyone. Now, without makeup, she could not hide her sickly haggardness. He did not know that she had not eaten or drunk for 2 whole days. Her eyes were red as if she had cried. For a moment, his heart ached. Mu Yichen held his forehead helplessly. Initially, he only wanted to come alone and did not want her to come along. However, she stubbornly insisted on coming along. He had no choice but to let her wait outside the door. He did not expect Jing Yang to say such heartless words. Jing Yang glared at Yueyao silently. Yueyao did not say a word. She looked back at him with an indescribable disappointment in her eyes. She expected to hear many cruel words from him, but she did not expect him to be so eager to draw a line between them. She thought about the girl who had been beside him last night, holding his arms so intimately. They were together the whole night, right? What exactly happened between the two of them? Yueyao did not dare to think about it. Let's end it here. Other than settling accounts, we don't owe each other anything. As Yueyao said this, she suddenly raised her hand and casually took off a ring on her ring finger. She threw it on the floor. It was a rose gold ring. She bought it at a store and it was not expensive. When they were young, she often stuck to Jing Yang. The two could be considered childhood sweethearts. Whether it was the Mu family or Jing Yang's mother, they were sure that they would get married when they grew up. At that time, the two little guys were very close. Other than Mu Yichen and Yin Tianyu, it seemed that only Jing Yang could tolerate her princess-like temper. During Christmas in junior high school, Jing Yang used the money he earned from his part-time job to buy a rose gold ring and made a promise with her. He said to her, Yueyao, this is my engagement ring for you. When I grow up, I'll marry you and make you Mrs. Jing, okay? At that time, there was no such thing as puppy love between the two of them. It was just that both of them had too many fantasies about their future. Yueyao had been doted on since she was a child. She was the youngest and only daughter of the Mu family. She was the princess. Jing Yang didn't come from a rich family like her, but the Mu family took special care of him. Jing Yang's mother did not remarry. It was not easy for her to raise Jing Yang alone. Originally, she had planned to give birth to the child and return to the countryside to develop. The cost of living in the capital was too high, and it was hard to get by. But how could Mu Yueyao bear to let Jing Yang leave? Hence, Yun Shishir offered to cover Jing Yang's living expenses and school fees. Only then did Jing Yang and his mother officially take root in the capital. However, all these beautiful things were completely shattered because of an accident. After that incident, Jingyang not only felt love for Mu Yueyao, but also hatred. Originally, this accident should not have happened. For the first time in his life, he hated her willfulness. Watch first Zoe new chapter section. Please go to Hall of Visitors, mobile address. Chapter 170. For the first time in his life, he hated her stubbornness. However, all this hatred was suddenly thrown into chaos when the rose gold ring fell to the ground. The ring had entered his line of sight without warning and made him realize that to her, this ring was so cheap. No matter how many years had passed, she had always worn it on her finger. But now, she had taken it off and thrown it in front of him. Mu Yueao's face was expressionless and he couldn't tell what it was. She smiled sadly, and just when he thought she was about to cry, she said lightly, "Let's end it here." "Let's end it here." Mu Yueyao smiled coldly and said, "I should give up too. In the future, as you wish, I won't pester you anymore." As she said this, she walked over and held Mu Yichen's hand. She forced a smile and said, "Brother, let's go." Mu Yichen looked at Jing Yang and then turned back to look at Yueyao. He couldn't bear it and asked, "Have you made up your mind?" "Yeah. I've let go. Why do I have to do such stupid things?" Mu Yueyao took a deep breath as if she had finally let go of something that had been weighing on her mind. She smiled and said, "It's time for me to start my own life, isn't it?" Mu Yichen's lips twitched, but he didn't say anything. He only sighed and hugged her lovingly before turning to leave. It was only after the siblings left that Jing Yang seemed to come back to his senses. He walked over and bent down gently to pick up the rose gold ring. He wiped the ring clean with his cufflinks and wrapped it in his palm. His assistant and manager looked at each other and frowned, but they didn't say anything. Beijing, Moon Palace, a top-class private clubhouse. In a luxurious private room, Mu Yueyao leaned lazily on the sofa. She was wearing a black mid-length dress that hugged her exquisite figure. Her hair was slightly messy and she had only put on some foundation makeup. However, at that moment, the music was loud and the lights were dim. As the light shone on her exquisite features, she looked a little dispirited and lazy. On the table, the goblets had toppled over, and the beer bottles were all over the place. Several handsome and beautiful male models were standing on the small stage, holding microphones and trying their best to show off their voices. These models were all the top male models of the Moon Palace. Whether it was in terms of figure or appearance, they were all ranked in the top 5. After returning from Hong Kong, Yueyao hid from everyone and secretly took root in the Moon Palace. The Moon Palace was a high-class clubhouse that combined entertainment and hotel. It had a bar, a room, and a bedroom. She turned off her phone and hid her whereabouts from everyone. She played in the Moon Palace every day. When they were tired from singing, they would drink. When they were drunk, they would return to the hotel to rest. When she woke up, she did not have time to eat and continued to drink in the private room. She felt lonely drinking alone, so she spent a lot of money. A few male models rushed into the private room to drink with her, get drunk with her, go crazy with her, and play with her. This kind of feeling was really good. It was carefree, crazy, and incisive. When he was drunk, he felt as if the whole world was spinning, as if he was floating in the clouds. At that time, even if the sky fell, it had nothing to do with her. She didn't need to think about the person in her heart. She just needed to find her own happiness. But, even if she was drunk, she still missed him. His face appeared in her mind. Before she realized it, her face was already covered in tears. Chapter 171. At the Mu residence. Mu Yichen tried calling Yueao's cell phone for the 154th time, but it was turned off. This time, he was really furious. What was going on? Could it be that her cell phone ran out of battery? No matter how many times he called, Yueyao did not pick up. After returning from Hong Kong, it was as if she had disappeared from the face of the earth. He did not know where she went. She was unreasonable. Although he knew that nothing would happen to Yueyao, he was still worried. Just as Mu Yichen was about to explode with anger, Mu Yaja suddenly returned. When he opened the door, he saw Mu Yichen holding his cell phone. His face was as black as a sheet of paper. He curled his lips and asked calmly, "Is little sister not back yet?" Yeah. Mu Yichen was obviously guilty. He felt that it was his fault for not taking good care of Yueyao. Mu Yaja raised his wrist and looked at his watch. Yueyao had been missing for 3 days and 3 nights. Even if she was fooling around, she should have had enough. "Did you look for her?" Mu Yichen nodded helplessly. "I did." "Did you tell her second brother?" "No. I didn't. I didn't dare to tell you. You should still be in the hospital with Natalia." He didn't know about this. Mu Yichen paused and suddenly sighed helplessly. "I thought that although she was naughty and unreasonable, she shouldn't have gone overboard, right? She disappeared the moment she came back from Hong Kong. I don't know where she went." As Mu Yichen spoke, he became angry again. Other than anger, he was more worried. "Why are you so anxious?" Mu Yaja, however, did not show much anxiety. Clearly, he should be the one worrying the most at this moment, yet he appeared calm and composed. Mu Yichen was even more surprised. "Dad, aren't you anxious? Why are you in a hurry?" Mu Yaja asked casually, "Has your precious little sister been this willful since she was young? But there must be a limit to being willful." Mu Yichen crossed his arms in anger. "This is too much. She doesn't know how to go home every day. What exactly does she want?" Mu Yaja raised his eyebrows slightly and said coldly, "In the end, it's all because you spoiled her." Mu Yichen was speechless. He glanced coldly at Mu Yaja and quietly complained, "Daddy, you seem to be the one who dotes on little sister the most and spoils her the most." "Yes." Mu Yaja did not deny it at all. "I pampered her. Do you have a problem with that?" Mu Yichen suffered another setback. He did not dare to contradict Mu Yaja. Although he had already grown up, Mu Yaja was still an extremely revered father figure to him. Mu Yichen sighed. Mu Yaja frowned and said, "Don't worry about this. Go and rest early." "Then, what about little sister?" "I will find her." Mu Yichen frowned and hesitated for a while. In the end, he could not help but say, "Daddy, if you find little sister and she is in a bad mood these few days, please don't take it to heart if she says a few words to contradict you." Mu Yaja did not say anything and only said, "Go to bed early." "Oh." Mu Yichen returned to his room. This was because he knew that Mu Yaja must have made a decision by saying so. Since they were young, Yueyao had run away from home many times in a fit of anger. Every time, only Mu Yaja could find her. Moreover, the two of them had a tacit understanding of where she was hiding. Chapter 172. However, no matter where Yueyao hid, she would not tell anyone. It was as if the father and daughter were telepathic. How enviable. When Mu Yichen returned to his room, Mu Yaja went out of the house and went to the garage. When he saw that Yueyao's Maserati was still at home, he smiled in satisfaction. The car was parked at home. This was a secret signal between the father and daughter. It meant that she was at the Moon Palace. The Moon Palace. From the name, it was obvious who had invested in this top-notch private club in Beijing. Originally, the Mu family had a few private clubs, but they were usually places for business. The Moon Palace was built because Yueyao was obsessed with singing when she was in junior high. Therefore, he was worried that his daughter would not have a good singing environment, so he built the Moon Palace. There was a princess box in the Moon Palace. The sound system inside was at least $1 million. Just the sound system alone was worth a few $1,000,000. The duplex box was more than 700 square meters. They had hired the top international choreographer to design an especially beautiful stage. It could accommodate hundreds of people and even hold a small fan club. When she was young, Yueyao was definitely the envy of all the students in school. At her birthday party, all the celebrities she liked would appear at her birthday party. There were even celebrities who were proud to attend her birthday party. The scariest thing was that the value of anyone who could attend her birthday party would definitely double. She was at the Moon Palace. Wuxia started the car almost without hesitation and sped toward the Moon Palace. When he arrived at the Moon Palace, the hall was brightly lit. A row of people was in front of the switchboard. They were at a loss. When they saw Wuxia, it was as if they had seen their savior. Chairman Mu is here. A group of waiters came over with bitter faces. They surrounded Wuxia and complained at the same time. Chairman Mu, young miss doesn't let us into the box. She asked for a lot of alcohol. We don't dare to refuse. Previously, the two managers advised her not to drink. They even lost their jobs. This is not important. You should go and take a look. If she continues drinking like this, her body will collapse sooner or later. Wuxia frowned, but his expression was still calm. He looked around and raised a finger to signal them to be quiet. The group immediately fell silent. I'll go look for her. You guys stay outside and don't come in. Everyone hurriedly nodded. Several managers escorted Wuxia to the door of the room. Although the room was soundproof, they could still hear Wuxia singing at the top of his lungs. Wuxia frowned slightly and sighed helplessly. He reached out and pushed the door open. On the stage, the lights were dazzling. Yueyao Mu stood on the stage, surrounded by lights, holding a microphone and humming drunkenly. Surrounded by the stage lights, she couldn't see who had walked in. As soon as Wuxia walked in, the male models accompanying Yueyao immediately bowed and retreated. He didn't disturb her immediately. Instead, he sat on the sofa and silently watched his daughter go crazy. When he looked at the song ordering machine, he was shocked. More than 200 songs. Sad people don't listen to slow songs. Goodbye. Exclusive breakup. The last snow. I just want to say goodbye. A typical lovelorn song. Wuxia felt sorry for her and wanted to laugh at the same time. This little brat had lit up all the heartbroken love songs. Yueyao Mu was still singing. Give up, don't struggle needlessly, forget him, love is not so complicated. Chapter 173. Halfway through her sobs, she couldn't continue singing anymore. Yueyao fell onto the stage, unable to recover from the setback. Seeing that she had stopped singing, Wuxia reached out and poked the music machine to stop the music. The deafening music in the huge private room stopped abruptly. As Yueyao had been drinking, her reaction was a little sluggish. It took her a while to realize that someone had touched the music machine. She looked in the direction of the music machine. Although her mind was a little hazy, she could still recognize the man sitting on the sofa. She suddenly felt guilty and aggrieved. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Daddy, no matter how angry he was, he could not bring himself to be angry at her soft and coquettish call. He sighed and gently patted the area beside him. Frowning slightly, he said, "Come here, the floor is cold." Yueyao listened to him and obediently got up from the floor. She walked over to him, swaying step by step. She was clearly walking towards his side, but when she reached his side, her legs went soft and she collapsed on his body. Wuxia carried her lovingly in his arms and gently rubbed her tear-stained eyes. There was a rare tenderness in his eyes. It was no wonder that Xianxia was always jealous. Before Yueyao was born, she had already mentally prepared herself that if she gave birth to a daughter, this daughter would definitely compete with her for favor. But she hadn't expected that Wuxia would be so biased. After being married for decades, although the husband and wife were glued to each other like glue, they were still incomparably loving. They weren't like an old couple who had been married for many years, treating each other with respect and retaining the feelings of their youth, but, as his daughter gradually grew up, Wuxia placed a lot of focus on Yueyao. Xianxia had repeatedly emphasized that a grown daughter couldn't be kept at home. No matter what, his daughter had to get married. However, Wuxia said that it was because his daughter was going to get married sooner or later that he had to dote on her. He doted on her so much that in the future, if his future son-in-law didn't dote on his daughter as much as he did, He wouldn't bear to hand his daughter over to someone else. Xianxia was already considered a Buddhist. But there were many times when she would still be a little jealous of her daughter. This was especially so when she saw Wuxia looking at her daughter dotingly. Her heart ached and she could not help but feel envious. Yueyao took the opportunity to lean her head on his shoulder and didn't say a word. When Wuxia saw this, he frowned and laughed. What's the matter? Who made my little princess angry this time? He was pretending that he didn't know what had happened between her and Jingyang. Yueyao wasn't willing to tell him either. How could she possibly complain to Wuxia? Even if she had been wronged, she wouldn't tell him. She didn't dare to imagine what would happen if he got angry with Jingyang because of this. If Wuxia got angry and really wanted to deal with Jingyang, the entire entertainment industry would be shaken. This was between her and Jingyang. She didn't want to implicate anyone else. Moreover, she had drunk alcohol and was in a daze. Perhaps she was tired of crying and was tired of it. Now that her tears had dried, she quietly snuggled up in Wuxia's arms. Finally, she felt that the whole world had quieted down. She was so tired from crying that she felt like her head was swollen and hot. She didn't say anything and Wuxia didn't force her either. Chapter 174. Wuxia didn't force her. She didn't know why, but Yueyao felt her heart calm down when she was by his side. She didn't say anything and didn't know if she was crying. She just wrapped her arms around his waist, sobbing and feeling wronged. Wuxia gently scratched the bridge of her nose and asked gently, "Have you had enough fun outside?" "I'm done, then come home with Daddy." When Yueyao heard this, she shook her head vigorously. Wuxia couldn't help but laugh. "What's the matter? Is there a fierce tiger at home? Don't want to go back?" "Yes." Yueyao said seriously, "I'm afraid that Mommy will eat me up." Wuxia said, "Mommy doesn't know about you playing outside." "Eh? Why?" "That clown brother of yours kept it a secret for you. He said that you went on vacation." "Then how did you find out?" Wuxia raised his eyebrows and reminded her helplessly, "I saw that he was so anxious these past few days. Although he pretended to be calm in front of your mommy, how could he hide it from me? When I saw that your car was parked in the basement, it meant that you went to the Moon Palace." Realization dawned on Yueyao. She lowered her head guiltily and admitted her mistake sadly. "I'm sorry to have made Daddy worry again." "If it's possible," Wuxia hugged her tightly. "Daddy wants to worry about you for the rest of his life." When Yueyao heard this, her heart trembled violently. She didn't know why, but she felt a little sad. She didn't dare to look up at him. After the alcohol had subsided, she suddenly felt that her behavior these past few days had been a little too willful. As Wuxia hugged Yueyao, he couldn't help but feel emotional. This daughter of his meant something different to him. This was the child that he had nurtured with Xianxia for the past 10 months. Since the day Xianxia was pregnant, he had been taking care of her carefully. At the same time, he fantasized about whether the Xiao Bao in her stomach was a son or a daughter. He sighed with emotion as he held up Yueyao's hand. Her fingers were slender, fair, and slender. Such a beautiful hand also proved that his beloved daughter had finally grown up. The princess in the castle, who was ignorant of worldly affairs, finally had the 7 emotions and 6 desires. She was no longer dejected over matters of the heart. She still remembered that when she was just born, her small and delicate body was just enough for her to support with her 2 hands. Now, she had already grown to be so slender and elegant. Time really passed too quickly. It was like quicksand on one's fingertips, impossible to grasp. Wuxia gently tucked her hair behind her ear and said gently, "You will always be Daddy's princess. If you are unhappy, of course Daddy will feel it." When Yueyao heard this, she didn't know why, but her tears, which had already subsided, suddenly overflowed again. Her eyes were clearly hurting from crying, but she couldn't stop the tears from gushing out. She hugged Wuxia's shoulder and choked with sobs. "I won't marry in the future. I want to be with Daddy and Mommy for the rest of my life." When Wuxia heard this, he almost blurted out, "Okay. His daughter said that she didn't want to marry. This was what he hoped for the most. It was said that there were only 2 happy days when a son was born. The first was the day he was born, and the second was the day he married his wife. It was also said that from the day a daughter was born until the day she got married, it was blissful. The rest was melancholy. However, he clearly knew that her words were just a spur of the moment. He was just a passerby in her life. Sooner or later, there would be a man who would hold her hand. Chapter 175. Sooner or later, there would be a man who would hold her hand, and no matter how reluctant he would still have to entrust her hand to that man. But, no matter what kind of man it was, as long as he bullied her and made her cry, even if it was her own wishful thinking, she couldn't let him know. Because she would forgive that man, but he wouldn't. However, Wuxia still felt warm inside when he heard her words. Why else would they say that a daughter was her father's lover in his previous life? It was so heartwarming. Daddy, let's not go home tonight, okay? Wuxia was a little worried. After all, she reeked of alcohol. Although Wuxia was protecting her, if Xianxia caught wind of it, she wouldn't be able to escape a scolding. She didn't want to make Xianxia angry. Because, no matter how protective Wuxia was of her, he was her father and also her husband. The only request he had for his daughter was to try her best not to make her mommy angry. Xianxia was such a reasonable person that she wouldn't be unreasonable. If Xianxia found out that she had gone to drink again, she would definitely be angry. Wuxia also guessed what she was thinking. What's the matter? Are you afraid that mommy will get angry when she smells the alcohol on you? I promised mommy that I wouldn't drink. Wuxia sighed and sobered up a little. When she thought of Xianxia's gloomy face, she actually started to feel a little scared. Wuxia flicked her head gently. Why did you still drink when you knew? Wuxia asked again, have you thought it through? What? You've drunk and you've had enough trouble these few days. Have you thought it through? Wuxia lifted her head and looked into Wuxia's eyes in a daze. Suddenly, she took a deep breath and her voice trembled a little. You haven't thought it through? I've thought it through. Wuxia finally said seriously, I've decided to let him go. For some reason, looking at Yueyao's casual expression, Wuxia's heart ached even more. He understood that she had not let go at all. Her face was full of reluctance and heartache, but she had decided to let go. It was probably because she was disheartened and did not want to wait any longer. I know that there are some things that can no longer be undone, but I don't want him to trample on my pride anymore. Wuxia said indifferently, it's good that you've thought it through. Daddy. I really envy you and mommy. Wuxia sighed from the bottom of her heart. Your relationship with mommy is really good. I rarely see the two of you fighting. When I was young, I thought that if there was a man who could dote on me like how daddy dotes on mommy, I would be willing to do anything for him. Impossible. Why? Wuxia was a little puzzled and retorted, Daddy is not the only good man in this world. Wuxia smiled. But in this world, there is only one daddy. While Yueyao was in a daze, Wuxia continued, in this world, there is only one mommy. The relationship between your mommy and I can't be replicated. Can't be replicated, it's the same for relationships. You can't use your request for daddy to ask another man. Wuxia's words had a deeper meaning. Yueyao felt that his words were a little complicated and difficult to understand. Daddy, what do you mean? It's fine if you don't understand. Wuxia gently stroked her hair on her forehead. Go back to the room upstairs and sleep for the night. Come home with me tomorrow. Chapter 176. Yueyao was so tired that she was barely conscious. She leaned on Wuxia's shoulder and nodded to herself. It was obvious that she was exhausted. Wuxia carried her, his heart aching. He walked out of the door and headed upstairs. The 5th floor and above were all private rooms. Wuxia had specially prepared a princess suite for Yueyao. No one else was allowed to use this room under any circumstances. However, the room would be meticulously cleaned every 2 days to keep it clean and tidy. After Mu Yaja carried Yueyao into the room, she was already sleeping soundly in his arms. A certain man frowned in disdain. He despised the fact that his daughter reeked of alcohol and it was inconvenient for him to help her wash up. It wasn't as if he couldn't get someone to serve her. However, seeing that she was sleeping so soundly, Mu Yaja couldn't bear to wake her up. Hence, he laid her flat on the bed and covered her with the blanket, allowing her to sleep soundly. The next day, when Yueyao woke up, it was already late in the morning. She opened her eyes and felt nauseous like a tidal wave. Yueyao kicked the blanket away weakly. Just as she turned over, she felt a tremor in her body as if something was tumbling violently. She opened her mouth and almost vomited on the carpet. However, a hand had already passed her the rubbish bin in time. After Yueyao finished vomiting, the foul smell from the rubbish bin made her almost unable to open her eyes. "Are you done vomiting?" A man's steady and powerful voice came from beside her. Yueyao woke up abruptly and turned her head in embarrassment. She saw Mu Yaja looking at her calmly. "Daddy," even though she had been vomiting like this for the past few days and had been drinking heavily, Mu Yaja suddenly felt embarrassed when he saw her vomiting in such a sorry state. Are you done vomiting?" "A little more." Mu Yaja didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He laughed and said, "Brew a little more." As he spoke, he placed the rubbish bin at her door. He sat at the side and didn't say anything, just looking at her. Yueyao was embarrassed. She was disgusted by the smelly rubbish bin. She looked up. Mu Yaja thoughtfully handed her a glass of water. Yueyao took it obediently and gulped down a big mouthful. She rinsed her mouth and immediately vomited. Mu Yaja glanced at her and asked, "Are you better?" "Much better. Do you want to take a shower or go straight home?" "Shower." She reeked of alcohol. She didn't notice it when she was drunk yesterday, but now that she was awake, she didn't feel well. "Go take a shower then. I'll wait for you outside." "Daddy," Yueyao was a little embarrassed and said, "You won't scold me, right?" Mu Yaja looked up at her. After a long while, he said, "If you walk out of this room today and continue living like yesterday, Daddy doesn't recommend scolding you until you wake up." Yueyao shuddered violently. Yun Shishir had once told her that Mu Yaja was usually gentle to her, but when he got angry, he was 100 times scarier than her 2 brothers. Although she was spoiled and arrogant, she respected this father of hers very much. Of course, she had thought it through. She had been unable to recover from the setback for the past few days. Now that she had suffered and cried, she would look down on herself if she continued to give up on herself. It was just a man. Watch first Zoe New Chapter 2 section. Please go to hall guest, phone address. Chapter 177. Yueyao walked straight into the bathroom. Before this, Mu Yaja had already entered the bathroom and filled the bathtub with water. A rainbow-colored bath ball was placed beside it. Mu Yaja must have asked someone to prepare it. Yueyao was very touched. In the end, the one who doted on her was still her daddy. Yueyao put the bath ball into the bathtub. The small ball swayed in the water and then started to bubble. In the blink of an eye, it dragged a rainbow-colored tail and the entire bathtub was filled with a fresh fragrance. After a short wait, she took off her clothes and lay in the bathtub. She closed her eyes in satisfaction. She loved bathing the most. When she was in the bathtub, she felt as if she had emptied her mind and would not think about anything else. But at this moment, she still thought about a lot of things. She thought about her own stupidity and foolishness. She thought about how she had been like a fool for so many years, chasing after the light but not being able to catch it. Mu Yueyao took a deep breath of the mist and almost choked. Then, she let go of her hands and relaxed her body in an instant. But her eyes were still a little sore. She had let it go. Besides relief, there was also an inexplicable pain. If it was so easy to let it go, there would not be so much pain. Let it go then. Mu Yueyao cupped the water and gently covered her face. Let it go. Don't think about it anymore. With that, she immersed herself in the bathtub. "Young miss, I'll put your clothes here. They have been washed and ironed for you." The room service staff gently placed a pile of soft clothes on the stool. The clothes she wore yesterday already reeked of alcohol and could not be worn again. Hence, Wuxia asked the hotel manager to personally choose a new set of clothes. After washing and ironing them carefully, they were sent over. Yueyao wrapped herself in a bathrobe and held up the clothes. She asked doubtfully, "Where's Daddy?" "Chairman Mu is waiting for you at the clubhouse." "Okay, you can go out then." "I'm going to change." "Yes." "Young miss, if you need anything else, please feel free to let me know." "Got it." After everyone left, Yueyao casually changed into a new set of clothes. She was very particular about what she wore. However, in the past few days after returning from Hong Kong, she had been singing, drinking, and living a life of luxury. Even she herself felt that she was neither a human nor a ghost. However, just like Wuxia said, when she walked into the bathroom and came out, everything would be clear. He had figured everything out. After Yueyao changed her clothes, she came to the clubhouse and saw Wuxia sitting on the sofa. There were several bosses drinking coffee in the clubhouse. When they saw Wuxia, they immediately went up to greet him. Wuxia looked indifferent. These men were begging and pleading for nothing more than that. Now that more than half of the Xingyu Financial Group's affairs had been handed over to Yun Tianyu, he could not be bothered to interfere. Thus, he leisurely played Tai Chi with them. When he saw Yueyao, he immediately asked, "Are you done?" "Yes." Yueyao came to Wuxia's side and said to him, "Daddy, let's go home." When they heard that they were going home, the two men looked at each other. No matter how anxious they were, there was nothing they could do. They could only nod repeatedly and watch the father and daughter leave. Chapter 178. 5 months later. The official handover of the CEO position of Tianyu Entertainment under Xingyu Financial Group was completed. Mu Yueyao became the only female CEO since the establishment of Xingyu Financial Group. She was in charge of all the entertainment businesses under Xingyu. Actually, this handover ceremony was considered to be particularly long. Although Yun Tianyu had taken over most of Xingyu's affairs from Wuxia, it did not mean that Xingyu Financial Group was a family-run enterprise. With the Mu Group as a precedent, Wuxia hoped that Xingyu Financial Group could become a multinational corporation that would last for generations. Therefore, all the positions in the corporation were fair competition. Of course, as the precious daughter of the founder of Xingyu Financial Group, she still had some preferential treatment in the election. After Yueyao officially took over Tianyu Entertainment, she made 3 sweeping changes. First, she eradicated all the vermin left behind in history. Tianyu Entertainment's predecessor was Huanyu Entertainment. After Xingyu Financial Group acquired the Mu Group, they also acquired Huanyu Entertainment. This was not a benign cooperation. Back then, Wuxia had forced the merger. Therefore, some of the senior shareholders of Huanyu Corporation were somewhat conflicted. The outside world was not optimistic about this acquisition. They had a feeling that after Huanyu was acquired by Xingyu, it would definitely go downhill. Indeed, during the period of time after the acquisition, Huanyu had indeed gone downhill for a long time. At that time, almost half of Jiangshan's business was supported by Yun Shishir. This acquisition almost caused Huanyu to suffer a great loss, and many popular celebrities left. After some time of consolidation, Huanyu Corporation was renamed Tianyu Entertainment. Only then did it pick up again. At that time, Yun Shishir, who was in a semi-retired state, was also the deputy director of the entertainment industry. She had a better strategic plan than Ji Lin. She did not sign any of the internet celebrities, and instead, she specifically picked veteran actors and actresses whose contracts had ended. When Yueyao was 10 years old, Tianyu ushered in a historical year. That year, almost all the popular young actors and actresses failed at the box office due to high pay and zero acting skills. On the contrary, a TV series that Yun Shishir invested in was so popular that it surprised the outside world. She wasn't investing in some big IP or celebrity production. It was just a simple family drama. It was nothing more than a family affair between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. However, because of the strong sense of immersion, her own ability in the drama was regarded as a masterpiece by the audience to wash their eyes. Actually, the story wasn't that fresh. It was just that after such a long period of time, after the awkward acting of those young actors and actresses, the word traffic suddenly lost its luster. Coupled with the rectification of some of the bad practices in the entertainment industry regarding high pay and loopholes in contracts, many stars with good acting skills finally made a comeback. This was not because Xianxia had a better view of the big picture, but because she believed that a celebrity could be inexperienced in acting and not have the looks of a dragon or a phoenix among men, but if there was a problem with their attitude or if their integrity was questionable, they were destined to not be able to stay young. She didn't like people who were not serious about their work. The reputation of the artists under Jianghu suddenly rose. After that, Jianghu recruited a large group of elite editors. With good stories, a good team, good actors, and good resources, Jianghu almost occupied a heaven-defying market share. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 179. However, even with such heaven-defying resources, there were still some people who did not agree with each other. Because of the historical problems left over from the period of Huanyu and some vermin in the company, during the handover period, Mu Yueao got rid of all these people in one fell swoop. This method won her the favor of everyone in the company. After all, there were some people that the previous dynasty couldn't touch. However, Mu Yueao was different. As a new official, she had power and courage. Originally, Xianxia didn't want Mu Yueao to handle the Vanity Fair. The Mu family was rich. To put it bluntly, even if Mu Yueao stayed at home, she could still sit on the wealth that she couldn't spend for centuries. Her two elder brothers were influential figures, and their parents had accumulated wealth that could rival a country. Xianxia's idea was for Yueao to be able to do what she liked. However, she didn't know what her daughter had experienced. Overnight, she became less lively and talkative than before. At the same time, she strongly requested to inherit Jianghu Entertainment. Although Xianxia didn't agree, Mu Yaja let her have her way. Although Xianxia didn't understand, she believed in one thing when it came to educating children. That was, it was good enough for one of the husband and wife to make the decision. Since Mu Yaja had already decided, she had no objection. However, not long after she took office, Yueao did something earth-shattering in the industry. Everyone was shocked. That was, she banned Jing Yang from the company. Half of Jing Yang's contracts were with Jianghu. Moreover, it was the most important part. Apart from commercial endorsements and variety shows, Jianghu had full authority in film and television. In other words, if Mu Yueao wanted to ban Jing Yang, she could simply open her mouth and close it. However, Jing Yang was facing a variety show and had nowhere else to go. This was only known to the company's insiders. No one outside knew. Soon, Jing Yang's studio caught wind of the news. Overnight, all the discussions were terminated. Although there was freedom in variety shows, because of Mu Yueao's ban, everyone panicked and didn't know if they should continue to invite Jing Yang to work with them. Almost everyone was surprised. In everyone's eyes, Mu Yueao's care and admiration for Jing Yang was unparalleled. What exactly had happened that made her so heartless as to ban Jing Yang? Jing Yang was not surprised when he found out. He knew that Yueao would do this. She must hate him. Otherwise, she wouldn't be so cruel to take such a measure. Everyone in the studio panicked. Apart from Jing Yang, no one was calm. The manager knew about the relationship between Mu Yueao and Jing Yang. He also knew that something must have happened between the two of them. Seeing Jing Yang's indifferent expression, he couldn't help but become anxious. Jing Yang, say something. Why are you acting like nothing happened? Why did they ban you all of a sudden? There must be some kind of misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Jing Yang smiled helplessly. Since she hates me so much, let her hate me. I owe her this. His manager asked tentatively, why don't you go and see her? What's going on? No matter what, you have to find out. No need, Jianghu said and didn't want to say anything else. Watch first episode Zoe new episode chapter 2 section please go to Hall of Visitors, mobile address. Chapter 180. The door suddenly opened. A middle-aged man in a suit walked in. Even though he looked a little old, he still looked extremely handsome. His demeanor hadn't changed. He still looked as elegant as ever. When he walked in, everyone was silent. No one dared to speak. Jianghu still looked indifferent. When he saw the man, he looked up and said indifferently, "Mr. Chen." Xianxia was the boss of Jianghu's studio. He was in charge of all the affairs of Jianghu's Asia-Pacific division. Xianxia glanced at him. Even though Jianghu looked like nothing had happened, it was impossible not to see the dispirited look in his eyes. He pretended not to see it and sat down opposite him. Pretending as if nothing had happened, he asked, "What's going on?" "Nothing." "Nothing?" Xianxia sneered. "Nothing? Did she help you ban you? The whole industry is saying that you offended the princess of the imperial family. She wants you to be kicked out." Jianghu remained silent. Xianxia looked around. The people around him immediately understood and left. When only he and Jianghu were left in the room, Xianxia stood up and paced back and forth a few times. Finally, he said, "Jianghu, it seems like you haven't understood the seriousness of the matter. Now, you're going to be banned. This is such a big matter. Instead of resolving it, you're sitting here with such a face. What are you doing? What's the meaning of this?" Jianghu was still expressionless. "She's the one who wants to ban me. I didn't beg her to ban me. Am I supposed to suck up to her and beg her to let me off and be merciful?" Xianxia did not speak. After a long while, he smiled coldly. "Others may not know the relationship between you and the Mu family's daughter, but I know it very well. You should know better than me what's going on, right?" Jianghu looked away. "You're running away," Xianxia said mercilessly. "Hurry up and go over. Whether you beg for mercy or be shameless, you have to resolve this matter as soon as possible. Otherwise, you can say that you're wasting all our energy and time." When Jianghu heard that Xianxia wanted him to look for Yueyao, his face darkened. "Why? Of course you have to deal with your own problems. Don't tell me you want us to clean up after you." Jianghu smiled. "If she wants to ban me, it's just a matter of words. I can't do anything about it. You have a way. I didn't. Even if you don't have a solution, think of one for me." Jianghu remained silent. Xianxia couldn't bear to see him like this. He suddenly walked over, stretched out his hand, and grabbed his collar. "Now, think of a way. President Chen, don't force me. You think I want to?" Xianxia said angrily, "You know, when you set up your personal studio, I invested 20 million. And this is just the initial funds. Later on, I invested tens of millions, and this studio signed a contract worth hundreds of millions. Just because of your personal matter, all our hard work is going to go down the drain? Jianghu, don't be too self-righteous and selfish." Xianxia roared, and Jianghu was like a mute, unable to speak. "I don't care how difficult it is for you. You must settle this matter for me. Do you understand?" Xianxia let go of him and continued, "You're not enemies. Why do you have to do this?" Chapter 181. Jianghu just stared at the cup on the coffee table and did not say a word. Xianxia knew that he was being very aggressive. But he knew what he was doing. Jianghu was his artist and he knew his character very well. They had worked together for so many years and Jianghu had made a lot of money for him. He would not make things difficult for him over such a small amount of money. He just couldn't stand it. They were not enemies. Especially after he came back from Hong Kong, he was always holding a ring in a daze. On the surface, he looked calm, but Xianxia knew that he must have been hurt badly. "Jianghu, are you suffering from self-abuse?" Xianxia squatted down and looked at him seriously. But inadvertently, he noticed that the corners of his eyes were bloodshot. When he saw it, His heart ached and he was angry that he did not fight back. But he did not say anything. He felt that he had made it clear enough. You can either talk to her or just quit the entertainment industry. Don't waste everyone's time. Jingyang said gloomily, "Don't worry, I will take care of it." Xianxia was stunned and suddenly snorted. "This is your business. You have to be responsible for yourself. Put everything else aside." At the Moon Palace, Jingyang held the business card. On it was the contact number of Tianyu Entertainment's public relations director, Han Guoyu. He also found out that Mu Yueyao was entertaining at the Moon Palace through him. He did not know why he was in a daze. In his heart, Mu Yueyao had always been a princess-like existence. She lived a good life and the word entertaining should be very distant to her. When he found out that she had taken over Tianyu Entertainment, he was a little surprised. But on second thought, as the CEO of Tianyu Entertainment, it was inevitable that she would have to entertain people. Jingyang walked into the club and stated his purpose of visit. The manager looked very cold. "President Mu is busy. It is not convenient for him to introduce you." Jingyang turned around and wanted to leave. But he suddenly recalled Xianxia's words. He braced himself and turned around again. "I have something important to discuss with her and I need to see her now." "She won't see you." Jingyang did not think much of it. "You haven't told her. How do you know that she doesn't want to see me?" The manager was speechless. He pinched his earpiece and walked to the side to report. Not long after, he walked over and looked Jingyang up and down. He said coldly, "Come with me." Jingyang followed the manager to the door of the private room. As soon as he pushed the door open, the originally quiet corridor reverberated with the music from the private room. The manager first went in to ask for instructions, and then Jingyang went in. Just as he walked in, he saw Mu Yueyao surrounded by several handsome men. On a small stage, a popular idol group was holding a microphone and singing a pop song. Jingyang's sudden intrusion surprised everyone. The news of Jingyang being blacklisted hadn't spread that far and wide. Other than the senior management, the artists under him hadn't heard much about it. Jingyang was a popular idol. Compared to him, the idols in the room were considered juniors. "Wow! It's Jingyang. This is the first time I've seen him in person. God, so handsome." A few young men who had obviously just debuted looked at Jingyang and whispered to each other. The most embarrassing thing was that one of the young men's eyes looked like knives that were aimed at Jingyang. Chapter 182. Jingyang was a little annoyed. He was not annoyed because the boy had the same eyes as him, but because his hand was wrapped around Mu Yueyao's shoulder. Mu Yueyao was holding a wine glass full of red wine. When she saw Jingyang walk in, she instinctively wanted to put it down. Because he did not like her drinking. However, halfway through, she suddenly thought of something. Her face turned ashen and she slammed the wine glass on the table. The wine glass cracked slightly and some of the red wine spilled out. The boy beside her was shocked. When he saw that her hand was covered in red wine, he immediately took out his handkerchief and carefully wiped her hand. "My Xiao Bao, why are you so careless? If the glass breaks and you hurt your hand, my heart will ache." This was undoubtedly a provocation in Jingyang's eyes. "Let go of her!" he instinctively shouted. The sudden order startled everyone. The boy turned his head and looked at Jingyang, not knowing what to do. Jingyang did not have much patience. He walked over and grabbed Yueyao's hand, slapping the boy's hand away at the same time. Because of Jingyang's status, the boy did not dare to say anything. Mu Yueyao struggled to break free. It was obvious that she was repulsed. "What are you doing here?" she asked indifferently. She glanced at him from the corner of her eye and then looked away. "Yueyao, don't mess around." Mu Yueyao sneered. "Jingyang, according to the rules, please call me President Mu." "President Mu?" Realizing that her tone was so distant, Jingyang was stunned for a moment. Then he said, "Don't mess around. You haven't answered me. Mu Yueao's tone was as cold as ever. What are you doing here? There are many people here. Can we talk in private? Everyone here is my people. There's no need to avoid. After a pause, Mu Yueao asked without hesitation, "You're just here to verify whether the decision to ban you came from me?" Jing Yang remained silent. Mu Yueao took a deep breath. So, it was really because of this. Although she had expected it, she still felt very disappointed. If it were not for this, he would never have taken the initiative to appear in front of her. Mu Yueao said calmly, "I was the one who made the decision to ban you. You don't have to be surprised about this, and you have no right to object. Please think about this carefully." Jing Yang said. "I know that you have a lot of dissatisfaction with me, but there is no need to vent your anger on others. I don't care if you want to ban me, but the studio under my name is affected. I can't sit back and do nothing. So?" Mu Yueao shrugged. "Even if you're dissatisfied, it doesn't affect my decision. What do you want?" Jing Yang was a little angry. "You don't have to target me from this angle. Jing Yang, don't be so arrogant. Look at all the people in this room." Her looks weren't bad, and she was good at singing and dancing. Her acting skills weren't bad either. If she was nurtured properly, it was only a matter of time before she became a superstar of the new generation. Why can't I give them a chance? Mu Yueao continued, "More importantly, they are all loyal to me. They won't make me unhappy or angry. Why should I support you and look at your face? Am I asking for trouble?" Every word was like a gem. Jing Yang looked at her silently. He didn't know why, but his heart palpitated. Watch first episode Zoe new chapter section. Please go to Hall of Visitors, mobile address. Chapter 183. Jing Yang looked at her silently. He didn't know why, but his heart was palpitating. Mu Yueao looked at him silently. She didn't know why, but she thought she had completely let go of him, that she had given up on him. But when Jing Yang appeared in front of her again, her heart was fiercely shaken. The longing that had festered long ago overflowed in her heart. Mu Yueao turned away and didn't look at him anymore. Jing Yang said quietly, "Are you hoping that I'll be like them and please you?" Mu Yueao was stunned. She didn't think that way at all. However, just as she was about to deny it, she felt that if she denied it, it would make him feel that she was bowing down to him. She had been so humble for so many years, but even so, she couldn't wait for him to turn back. Then, she would take what he said as the truth. Would he please her? So what if he pleases her? Mu Yueao sneered and asked calmly, "Can you?" Jing Yang's expression was still cold and didn't change at all. Mu Yueao raised her eyes and glanced at him without leaving a trace, but her tone was even colder. "Are you willing to please me? You're the nation's idol. You've always been high and mighty. Pleasing me is equivalent to lowering yourself." Would he? Lowering myself? To him, this word was undoubtedly a great humiliation. Whose dignity? Whose nobility? Whose dignity? In front of her, what dignity and dignity did he have? Jing Yang silently sucked in a breath of cold air. Finally, he slowly exhaled. Suddenly, he strolled in front of her. He was too tall. Mu Yueao could still remember that he was only half a head taller than her. In fact, when they were in middle school, she had developed faster than him and was about the same height as him. In the blink of an eye, he had grown into a 1.82-meter tall young man. Standing in front of her, he felt a sense of oppression. Mu Yueao suddenly felt suffocated. What made her feel even more suffocated was that in the next second, he suddenly bent over and lowered his head. He reached out and gently pinched her chin, his handsome face slowly pressing down on hers. "Do you like me like this?" Jing Yang's breath smelled like orchids. His usual cold and indifferent tone actually sounded like he was pampering her. The tenderness that she had not felt in a long time caused her to be deeply immersed in it, and she could not regain her senses. She was surprised and doubtful, but Jing Yang didn't wait for her to question him. He lowered his gaze and sealed her voice before she could say anything. The surroundings suddenly became deathly silent, and not a single sound was made. Everyone's eyes widened fiercely as they stared at the two of them. Yueyao stepped back slightly. Jing Yang's hands suddenly hugged the back of her neck tightly. Yueyao couldn't step back anymore and let his lips crush hers. His scalding hot breath was like magma, passing through the gap between her lips and gushing into her mouth and teeth. She could even smell the scent of the mint candy he was most used to eating. It was fresh and fragrant, and she couldn't help but indulge in it. Yueyao felt as if her entire body had sunk into a swamp. She wanted to struggle, but she couldn't move. After a while, Yueyao reached out and wanted to push him away. However, Jing Yang had already expected it and hugged her even tighter. The two of them were so close to each other. Yueyao had never thought that it would be such a scene. Watch first Zoe new chapter section. Please go to hall guest, phone address. Chapter 184. Even though the two of them were so close to each other. However, there was still a trace of embarrassment in Yueyao's eyes. Earlier, she could clearly feel the warmth in his eyes, but now, it was only coldness. A sense of helplessness enveloped her. Yueyao asked impassively, "What do you want? Is this enough for you?" Jing Yang gently stroked her chin and narrowed his eyes. "Is this the kind of submission you want?" Submission? When Yueyao heard this, she felt as if a basin of cold water had drenched her from head to toe. She looked up in disbelief and stared at Jing Yang, repeatedly thinking about what he had just said. Did he think that she wanted him to submit to her? Yueyao's heart was really cold. Her lips parted into a cruel smile and a voice that didn't seem to belong to her escaped from her lips. "Are you here to persuade me to give up the ban on you?" Jing Yang remained silent, taking it as a tacit admission. Yueyao arrogantly tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Suppressing the disappointment in her heart, she said coldly, "That will depend on your performance." Because of her overly strange tone, Jing Yang's expression immediately froze. Then, he smiled faintly and said, "I will definitely satisfy you, Chairman Mu." Chairman Mu, he actually used such an unfamiliar form of address. Yueyao smiled even more bleakly. "Don't disappoint me." Jing Yang lowered his head and whispered in her ear, "Tonight, Tonight? What did he mean?" Yueyao didn't have time to think before he kissed her again. All her thoughts froze at this moment. In the hotel corridor, there were messy footsteps. Yueyao felt extremely drunk. However, in her memory, he didn't feel like he had drunk much. How could he be so drunk all of a sudden? She staggered as she walked, her hand held tightly by Jing Yang. This was a hotel. What would happen next was completely predictable. Jing Yang said that he would perform well tonight. She wasn't stupid. He had been so attentive. Moreover, he had held her hand and led her into the hotel. It was self-evident what this meant. Yueyao Mu had already experienced puberty. She had once held her blushing face and wondered if she and Jing Yang would be like daddy and mommy if they got married. She was young and insensible. In the middle of the night, she saw her daddy carrying her mommy into the room. Out of curiosity, she sneaked to Wuxia and Xianxia's door and listened to the movements in the room through the door. Wuxia had put in a lot of effort in soundproofing the room. Through the door, nothing could be heard. However, Yueyao already had a vague idea of what was going on. What exactly happened between a man and a woman? Perhaps it was because her imagination was limited. No matter how good her imagination was, the other party only had Jing Yang's face. At that time, she might have already realized that she didn't simply see Jing Yang as an older brother. She regarded him as the object of her affection and was filled with youthful joy. In the room, the door was pushed open. Jing Yang held her arm and pulled her into the room. At that moment, Yueyao suddenly felt as if her soul had been sucked out of her. She entered the dark room. Before she could sort out her messy thoughts, the door was already closed. The room was so dark that she couldn't even see her fingers. She suddenly panicked. Chapter 185. She started to panic all of a sudden. Jingyang pinched her chin and lowered his head, taking away all of her breaths. In the dark night, she felt as if her body was drowning in the sea as the seawater gushed into her body. Suffocation, the pain was accompanied by the waves and slowly engulfed her body. The next day, the sun shone on the edge of the bed. When Mu Yueyao opened her eyes, she was the only one left on the huge bed. She sat up on the bed in a daze and looked around. The messy clothes on the floor, the crumpled bedsheets and her throbbing temples reminded her of the madness that had happened last night. Jing, she was about to call his name when she heard a sudden movement in the bathroom. Mu Yueyao nervously covered herself with the blanket. After a while, she saw Jing Yang walking out of the bathroom with a bathrobe draped over him. Jing Yang had a golden ratio figure and exquisite facial features. Even though he was only wearing a simple bathrobe, it did not detract from his heroic demeanor. He was able to become such a popular celebrity not only because of his superb acting and singing skills, but also because of his face. Mu Yueyao wrapped herself up like a dumpling and was extremely embarrassed. She wanted to break the silence, but she did not know what to say. "Are you satisfied?" Jing Yang was the first to break the silence. Mu Yueyao did not know what he wanted to ask. Last night, Jing Yang sat on the edge of the bed with a calm expression. The gentleness in his eyes was unprecedented. "Are you satisfied with my service?" Mu Yueyao's face turned pale at once. She felt that every word he said seemed to be humiliating her. Yes, she wanted to have him. But it wasn't in this sense. Mu Yueyao turned her face away and did not look at him. Jing Yang took a deep look at her and raised his eyebrows slightly. "Oh. Looks like you're not satisfied." It's okay." Jing Yang slowly inched closer to her and grabbed her chin. "I have all the time in the world now," he said softly. "Jing Yang." Yueyao finally couldn't take it anymore. "Don't go overboard." However, Jing Yang ignored her warning. His hands entwined with hers, trapping her in this world and kissing her lips. His kiss seemed to have a magical power. When she touched his lips just now, it was as if she had been poisoned, and she could no longer move. Mu Yueyao struggled with her last bit of rationality. "Jing Yang, don't do this, don't you like it?" Jing Yang leaned over, Mu residence. Mu Yueyao did not return home for the entire night. Mu Yaja's expression remained the same. The manager of the clubhouse called and reported Mu Yueyao's whereabouts. The manager said that Mu Yueyao had been with Jing Yang and had not left the clubhouse. Mu Yaja was relieved. Yun Shishir was still worried when she heard that. These two fellows seem to have some conflict recently. Is it really not a big deal? Mu Yaja said disapprovingly, "Let the youngsters solve their own problems. Why are you getting involved?" Yun Shishir pouted. "I'm a youngster too, okay? Could it be that in your eyes, I'm already an old woman?" Mu Yaja grunted, "You're an old woman. What about you? Then aren't you a stinky old man? What's there to dislike about an old man if I'm an old woman?" As the two of them bickered, Yun Shishir forgot that Yueyao had not returned home for the entire night. Quick, praise your wife for being beautiful. Chapter 186. Daddy. Xiao Yichen suddenly rubbed his chest and frowned deeply. "My chest feels a little stuffy." "What's wrong?" A hint of worry appeared on his face. "Why is your chest feeling stuffy again?" Xiao Yichen bit his head in confusion and pouted. "I don't know. It's just stuffy, and sour. I feel so sad." Mu Yaja patted his little head. At that moment, there was a sudden commotion at the entrance. Oh my God! So beautiful. The end of the red carpet was once again crowded with enthusiastic reporters. Yun Shishir had an elegant and charming smile on her face as she held on to Gu Xing's arm and gracefully entered the venue. When they appeared in front of the camera just now, there were countless stunned, jealous, contemptuous, and questioning eyes that fell on them from all directions. Especially when they saw Yun Shishir's eye-catching luxurious gown and the dazzling ruby necklace on her collarbone. Yun Shishir was dressed in a luxurious red gown and was as beautiful as a fresh and tender red rose. Her delicate face was full of color and fragrance. When she stood next to Gu Xingze, they had to admit that they were a perfect match. Gu Xingze had always been the darling of the fashion industry. With his tall figure and charming face, no matter which female celebrity stood next to him, they seemed to be overshadowed and robbed of some of their elegance. However, Yun Shishir was different. When she stood next to him, not only was she not overshadowed by his elegance, she stood out even more. This caused the reporters to excitedly whisper to each other. I recognize her. Isn't she the newcomer who came in with Heavenly King Gu? Yes. Her name is Yun Shishir. I heard her name just now. I heard that she's a very talented newcomer with great acting skills. I heard that she's the female lead chosen by Director Lin. You know Director Lin's standards. TSK, he's very strict. To be able to gain Director Lin's approval, his background must be extraordinary. Amazement and praise rushed towards them like a surging wave. Yun Shishir was a little scared, but she still had a charming smile on her face. She cooperated with the media's request to stop and hold hands with Gu Xingze, accepting the baptism of the spotlight. Mu Wanru immediately caught sight of the brilliant blood-red streak on Yun Shishir's neck. She widened her eyes in surprise and clenched her fists in disbelief. Then, her suspicious gaze slowly turned to Muyaja. There was no way she would mistake that ruby necklace. It was Muyaja's personal keepsake and the only precious relic his mother had left him. In the past, when she saw this necklace, he had always kept it in a small and exquisite crystal box. He always carried it with him and never left it. Even she couldn't touch it. Not to mention the others. This necklace was priceless. Its value was immeasurable. He actually gave it to Yun Shishir. It must be fake. That necklace must be fake, right? It must be fake, right? Otherwise, how could it be? Mu Wanru's face turned even paler. If the occasion permitted, she really wanted to rush over and turn Yun Shishir into ashes. The entire banquet had not officially started, but the atmosphere was already at the highest level because of Gu Xingze and Yun Shishir. In the magnificent hall, the lights were intertwined. Yun Shishir did not notice Mu Wanru's hateful gaze. Chapter 187. Who knew how many of them she was going to kill tonight? Even Li Hanlin, who was watching the scene from the second floor, was stunned. Yun Tianyu stepped on his foot and said coldly, Agent Li, have you forgotten what I told you? No. Li Hanlin reacted at once. Perhaps he was too shocked, he was so agitated that he almost dropped his expensive SLR camera on the floor. He broke out in a cold sweat. Calm down. Yu looked at him speechlessly, as if mocking him for being inexperienced. Director Yun, oh, my God. Madam Yun is so beautiful that time seems to have stopped. Li Hanlin was deeply shocked by this beauty. He quickly raised his camera and still did not forget to exclaim, the creator is so amazing, so beautiful. So beautiful. Of course. My mommy is a fairy who has descended to earth. Yu smiled knowingly as he looked at his mommy affectionately. His eyes were filled with tenderness and warmth. Sister Jingtian, isn't that Yun Shishir? Oh, my God. She's so beautiful in her gown. Tang Yu, who was at the VIP table, exclaimed when she saw Yun Shishir. She nudged Lu Jingtian, who was toasting with others, in disbelief. The latter turned around unhappily and coldly said, What's with the noise? Are you inexperienced? Seriously. Do you still remember her? She's the newbie that Director Lin has been grooming recently. The necklace on her neck is so beautiful. It's actually a pigeon's blood ruby. Lu Jingtian's heart skipped a beat. She followed Tang Yu's line of sight and was shocked, too. That necklace looks so familiar. She seemed to have seen it somewhere before and had a deep impression of it. Suddenly, a white light flashed in her mind. Ah. This isn't. Lu Jingtian's eyes flashed with surprise and then a fire of jealousy ignited in her. That necklace was a one-of-a-kind item in the world. She had only seen it on Brother Mu's wrist before. She heard that this necklace meant a lot to him and was regarded as his life. She was very fond of this necklace at first, so she begged him to let her have it. However, she accidentally angered him. At this point, she no longer dared to covet this necklace too much. It was rumored that this Tear of Rose was the last work of Jean Toomerson, the top Italian jewelry designer of the last century. After that, many jewelry designers used it as a source of inspiration to design many exquisite diamond necklaces. However, pigeon blood rubies were rare in the world. This Rose's Tear could be said to be the Queen of Gems at the end of the last century. Why was it on her? The suspicion in Lu Jingtian's eyes deepened, but what was more hidden in them was undisguised jealousy and hatred. She was going to steal all the limelight at tonight's cocktail party. This Yun Shishir had stolen her role and her limelight. Lu Jingtian's gaze fell on Gu Xingzi in disbelief. She was Gu Xingzi's female companion? Lu Jingtian had previously invited Gu Xingzi to be her male companion tonight, but she was mercilessly rejected by the latter, saying that he already had a date. She had been disappointed and thought that she was an international superstar invited by Huanyu Entertainment. It was actually her. A newcomer who had yet to debut? What was this? Lu Jingtian's heart was in turmoil. Chapter 188. When Yun Shishir walked past her, she secretly stuck out the tip of her foot from under her dress. Perhaps her gaze was too sharp, so it attracted Yun Shishir's attention. She had learned from her mistakes. Earlier, when she saw Yang Mi making things difficult for Yun Na, she was very mindful of her feet. The gala was a solemn occasion. Gu Xingzi did not hesitate to use his popularity to promote her. Knowing how to cherish opportunities, she maintained the highest standards, be it her bearing or elegant expression. Yun Shishir saw the hostility in her eyes and warily glanced at her feet. She quickly sensed that something was amiss. However, she pretended not to see it and nonchalantly held Gu Xingzi's arm as they brushed past each other. Under her feet, a pair of slender 7-centimeter heels ruthlessly crushed the back of Lu Jingtian's feet. Ah! Before Lu Jingtian could see Yun Shishir's embarrassing moment, she cried out in pain from her toes. Her forehead was instantly covered in cold sweat. Yun Shishir's heels were very exquisite, especially the pair of long and slender heels. Coincidentally, Lu Jingtian had worn a pair of fish-mouth heels to match her gown today. Yun Shishir purposely aimed her foot at her exposed big toe. If she stomped on it with all her might, it would only be a small crack on her fingernail, but she was afraid that she would break her bone. The pain of having her bones broken was heart-wrenching. With this stomp, Lu Jingtian fell to the ground. Today, she had chosen a short gown, but for some reason, she did not wear any underwear. Not only did she tumble, but she also exposed her underwear in front of everyone. The sharp-eyed media quickly snapped a few high-definition photos of her, making her look awkward. She cried out in pain without caring about her image. She was in so much pain that she was drenched in sweat. She felt suffocated as her breathing quickened and tears flowed uncontrollably. Yun Shishir. Tang Yu, who saw this scene, was the first to jump out. She pointed at Yun Shishir and said fiercely, "Did you do this on purpose?" Yun Shishir, too, was stunned by this sudden accident. She covered her mouth helplessly and was momentarily at a loss of what to do. She was so frightened that she kept quiet. This accident caused quite a commotion. Gu Xingzi shielded Yun Shishir behind him and glared at Tang Yu warningly. "What do you mean by this?" His eyes were unusually cold. For a moment, it was as if the temperature around them had dropped to the freezing point. Tang Yu was intimidated by his gaze. She restrained her fierce tone, but she was still indignant. This newbie doesn't know her place. How dare she step on Miss Lu's feet? Miss Lu was an honorific in Huanyu's name. For A-list celebrities like Yang Mi and Han Yuyan, it wasn't a big deal to call them by their names. However, a third-rate celebrity like Tang Yu could only respectfully address her as Miss Lu. Gu Xingzi said expressionlessly, "Shishir stepped on Jingtian's feet. Did you see it?" Tang Yu mumbled, "No, Yang Mi and Han Yuan stood at a distance, not intending to step forward. Now that Chairman Mu and young Madame Mu were present, it was better to protect themselves and not get involved in this mess. Chapter 189. She used so much force. Brother Xianxia, I feel like my toes are going to break. Lu Jingtian lamented pitifully. Ah. I didn't. Yun Shishir tried to explain herself in a fluster, but she looked helpless as if she had no way to defend herself. Inside, however, she thought to herself, my toes are definitely fractured. I know very well how hard she used. Even though I've always been compromising, it's all for Yu's sake. I'm not a pushover, I won't reject anyone who wants to bully me. She could vaguely tell that Lu Jingtian was not someone to be trifled with, but who asked her to be the one to trip her up first? She was merely giving her a taste of her own medicine, so it was not overboard. She could offend anyone she wanted. She had offended so many people today, and she was not one of them. Gu Xingzi knitted his brows. He had a close relationship with Lu Jingtian, but she was used to acting coquettishly, so her words were often exaggerated. Gu Xingzi naturally did not believe her easily, so he only said, I'll get someone to send you to the infirmary right away. Brother Xianxia, why are you so biased toward her? That little b*tch clearly stepped on me on purpose. Mu Yazha looked in Yun Shishir's direction with a deep frown. He was already very displeased from the moment she entered the venue. He originally thought that this woman was tactful enough, but he did not expect her to appear together with Gu Xingzi. At this moment, Xiao Yichen, who was standing beside him, also had a gloomy look on his face. The spot where Lu Jingtian fell was not far from where he was standing. From the moment Yun Shishir entered the venue, Xiao Yichen's entire attention was on him. The only thing the father and son had in common was that Xiao Yichen was equally unhappy with such a beautiful sister holding another man's arm. What happened next, though, was inconceivable to him despite his young age. Lu Jingtian actually stretched out her leg to trip him. He saw it clearly, but it was too late for him to stop her. He did not expect things to develop in an unexpected direction, though, naturally, the people on the second floor could clearly see the chaos that had occurred. Yun Tianyu only heard Lu Jingtian's unreasonable crying and accusations. It was clear that she wanted to put Yun Shishir in a disadvantageous position. His face turned red with anger. How dare you bully my mommy? Agent Li, what is this woman's name? Agent Li said bitterly, I don't know. You. Didn't you do your homework before coming here? The female celebrities I like aren't from Huanyu. Li Hanlin said innocently with a pitiful look on his face. But President Yun, I will investigate this matter thoroughly after the party ends. Yun Tianyu leaned on the railing and looked around for a while before anxiously saying, No, I want to go down. Li Hanlin, on the other hand, quickly picked him up. Director Yun, stop messing around. You can't go now. Your identity cannot be exposed for the time being. No, this pretty sister didn't step on you. Just as Yun Tianyu was worrying, a tender voice came from downstairs. With a dark face, he looked in the direction of the voice and saw Xiao Yichen unhappily saying, This pretty sister was walking fine, but you stretched out your leg to trip her. It's your fault. Yun Tianyu's face darkened when he heard this. Pretty sister? This little brat actually called his biological mommy, pretty sister? Yun Tianyu, who had always been calm and collected, twitched his mouth violently and became flustered in the wind. Chapter 190. This little brat actually called his biological mommy pretty sister? Yun Tianyu, who had always been calm and collected, twitched his mouth violently and became flustered in the wind. Then, based on this logic, what should this little lad call him? In his mind, he could not help but picture little Yichen standing in front of him, bashful and childish as he called out to him, Uncle. Yun Tianyu felt as if he had been struck by a landmine. Why was his brother so stupid? He really despised him. Compared to Xiao Yichen, he despised Mu Yazha even more. They had the same genes, so why was his brother's IQ worrying? In a way, Yun Tianyu could be said to be the high IQ pillar of the family of four, holding up the average IQ. His thoughts paused for a moment and he harshly reprimanded himself for letting his imagination run wild. What family of 4? He did not acknowledge his father and brother. His family only had his mommy and him. The rest did not count. Lu Jingtian was caught off guard by Xiao Yichen's words. Her face darkened and she was embarrassed. She even forgot to cry and could only laugh awkwardly. Deep down, she hated this child, who had appeared out of nowhere, to the core. If it were any other child, she would have long flared up. Alas, the one standing before her was Mu Yichen, the young master of the Mu group. Standing behind him was her beloved, Mu Yaja. No matter what, she had to be gentler to this child. The Mu family's love for this child was self-evident. What if she had to get along with him after marrying into the Mu family? She had to make this child like her, lest he become an obstacle to her marrying into the Mu family. She could only bear with the pain and smilingly said, "Baby Xiao Yichen, you must have seen wrongly. How could I do such a despicable thing?" Xiao Yichen looked at her with disdain and complained in his childish voice, "Daddy taught me since I was young that a man should be upright and take responsibility for his words. I'm not lying, it's clearly you who stretched out your leg to trip this pretty sister." Yin Tianyu almost fell to the ground. This child looked cold on the surface, but when he spoke, it was as if he was in kindergarten. He thought that he had also inherited excellent genes and was as smart as him. He covered his face silently. Li Hanlin nodded. "That's right. That's more like a 6-year-old kid. President Yun, your IQ and EQ are already heaven-defying." Xiao Yichen's words stirred up a commotion among the guests. Children's words are never fake. Moreover, for a prestigious family like the Mu group, their upbringing must be very strict. Young Master Mu would never lie. "That's right. I also think that Lu Jingtian is targeting Yun Shishir. It's inevitable for women to be jealous. Yun Shishir is so glamorous tonight. She must have stolen the limelight from many people. Some people have been unhappy for a long time. They must want to see her embarrassed. Newcomers are always oppressed, especially newcomers like Yun Shishir who haven't debuted yet. It's natural for her to be ostracized. I really feel sorry for her." Lu Jingtian was on the verge of tears. "I didn't." Chapter 191. Xiao Yichen suddenly pointed at the camera at the side. "I see that this camera is facing you. Play the video back, and the truth will be revealed." With that, the little lad mysteriously pointed at Lu Jingtian and pretended to be cool. "There is only one truth." After saying this, he actually raised his chin in self-satisfaction, thinking that he had said something cool. Everyone fell silent. Even Yun Shishir was stunned by Xiao Yichen's amusing act. Mu Yaja could no longer maintain his calm composure, and his lips curled into a smile for some reason. Upstairs, Yun Tianyu was completely petrified. Is he joking? Gu Xingzi let out a pft as he was amused by Xiao Yichen's amusing look. Ha ha ha. The guests were also tickled by the little guy's adorable side. Yun Shishir, who was standing among the crowd, looked at Xiao Yichen. She wanted to laugh, but she could not bring herself to do so. This child was actually helping her? This was something she did not expect. Ever since this child was born, the mother and son had never seen each other. However, there seemed to be a faint bond between them. After all, blood was thicker than water. It was a bond that could not be erased. Could this be considered telepathy? What did this child call her just now? Pretty sister? Yun Shishir could not help chuckling. When she first saw this child, he had an arrogant and cold expression, which was exactly the same as Mu Yaja's impression of him. He seemed unapproachable, but she did not expect him to have such an adorable side. Even though he and Yu were identical twins, their personalities were very different. Yu was a very gentle child. He was innocent, romantic, adorable, and heartwarming. Occasionally, he would show an astonishing maturity that made people want to rely on him. Xiao Yichen, on the other hand, seemed to have inherited more of Mu Yaja's genes. On the surface, he looked deep and cold, but he could also reveal a rare adorable side. In life, He must be a very clever child, right? She had missed 6 years of his life, which was one of her biggest regrets. For a moment, the awkward atmosphere was diluted. Gu Xingzi smiled as he secretly signaled his assistant with a look. The assistant beside him immediately understood and hurried forward to help the woman up, intending to take her to the infirmary. Lu Jingtian was throwing a tantrum, but Gu Xingzi's assistant had his ways of calming her down with just a few words. "Miss Lu, do you really want to make a big fuss? The camera was on just now. If you rewind it, you can clearly see what you did just now. Coincidentally, I also saw that scene just now. Xingzi is just giving you a way out so that you can lie low for a while." After a pause, she asked, "There are so many people here. Do you have to embarrass yourself?" She was at a loss for words. "I just can't stand her. Why should everyone revolve around her? Miss Yun Shishir is Xingzi's female companion at tonight's gala. He values her very much. Yet, you're making trouble for her. What are you doing to him?" "I have no intention of targeting Brother Xingzi. He's just giving Director Lu face. Don't do this again next time." "Sorry." She finally calmed down and allowed the assistant to help her to the infirmary. This storm had finally come to an end. Chapter 192. In the infirmary, Gu Xingzi's assistant, Jianghu, helped Lu Jingtian into the room. The bed closest to the door was covered in blood. On the bed lay an unconscious woman. Jianghu was shocked by this terrifying scene. What's wrong with this person? She did not recognize the poor woman in front of her because the person on the bed was already beyond recognition. She did not recognize her, but Lu Jingtian knew who she was. Was it not her fault that Yunna ended up in this state? Her face was covered in blood. Even though they had taken measures to stop the bleeding, blood still seeped out of the wound. It was a horrible sight. The infirmary had only done some simple treatment. In a situation like Yunna's, she still needed to be admitted to the hospital for treatment. Her face was beyond recognition. She was really beyond recognition. For a woman, her life would be completely ruined if her face was in such a state. A cocktail party had completely ruined her bright future. Lu Jingtian had been heavy-handed, but she did not expect this to happen in a fit of anger. For a moment, she was a little shocked and regretful. Therefore, when she pushed the door open and saw Yunna's miserable appearance, she felt a little guilty. She did not mean to hurt her, but this woman was too shameless. In her anger, she lost her mind. By the time she came back to her senses, her face was already disfigured. Although the eyebrow shaver was small, it was sharp enough. The wound on her face was not deep, but there was a lot of blood. More than a dozen scratches were densely packed and crisscrossed, making it look shocking. However, she had already called her father. Soon, he would send someone over to deal with this matter. When the matter was exposed, at most, they would have to compensate a few 100,000 yuan, appease the family's emotions, and suppress the limelight. This matter would be over just like that. If Yunna wanted to make a big deal out of this matter, she could bribe a substitute to take the blame for her, and this matter would end there. It was easy to deal with a person without power or influence. Lu Jingtian said to Jianghu, "Please call an ambulance for me. This place is too disgusting. I can't stay here any longer." "All right." Jianghu did not know that there was something fishy about this matter, so she called an ambulance for her. She walked out of the door and dialed the emergency number. Lu Jingtian's foot must have been fractured. Jianghu knew this in her heart. With such high heels, it would be strange if he wasn't crippled. Once there was no one else in the room, she boldly walked to the bed and lifted the person on it with the tip of her foot. When there was no response, she frowned, a little worried that the person might die. She remembered kicking this woman's vitals several times when she was teaching her a lesson. Could she be dead? She stretched out her hand and checked her breathing. Only when she sensed her rapid breathing did she heave a sigh of relief. "Bitch, don't blame me for being ruthless. You deserve it." Just as she finished speaking, she wanted to withdraw her hand, but her wrist was suddenly held tightly by that blood-stained hand. Lu Jingtian's eyes widened in shock. The person on the bed suddenly opened his eyes. His face was ferocious and his eyes were wide open. His eyes were red as if they were filled with blood. He was like a malicious spirit from purgatory. It was extremely terrifying. I will kill you. I'll kill you. Yin Na seemed to have woken up from a nightmare. She gripped Lu Jingtian's wrist tightly and cursed through gritted teeth. I won't let you off even if I become a ghost. Ah.